I served 3 years in prison, taking the fall for my husband. The day I got out, I discovered my entire family had moved, leaving behind nothing but a divorce decree. On the street, a wheelchair slipped down a flight of stairs. I rushed forward to stop it. After saving the old man in the chair, he saw the locket that had fallen from my neck. His next words left me stunned for the next 3 years. 1,095 days. When the heavy iron gate slammed shut behind me with a resounding clang, the harsh afternoon sun hit my face, unfiltered and blinding. I felt a wave of dizziness. My name is Eva Thompson. I'm 28 years old. Today, I was released from prison. I was wearing the same outfit I had on when I went in, a faded beige knit sweater and a pair of jeans, now hopelessly out of style. They were washed out and a little too short at the ankles. In my hand, I clutched a thin, clear plastic folder containing my release papers and the few dozen dollars to my name. I had no luggage, and no one was there to meet me. 3 years ago, on an afternoon just like this, Kevin, my husband, the man who had sworn to love and protect me for life, knelt before me. His face streaked with tears. "Eva, I'm begging you. I was the one who embezzled that money from the company. If they find out, I'll not only go to jail, but Mom and Dad will lose their house. It's the collateral. Our family will be destroyed. You're the finance assistant. If you take the blame, just say you had a moment of weakness. The amount isn't that big. You'll get 3 years max." "I swear," he pleaded. "For these 3 years, I'll work myself to the bone. When you get out, we'll buy a big house. I'll give you the best life. Eva, for the sake of our 5 years together, please, save me. Save our family." His tears, his pleas, the future he painted, and the soft, warm face of our 1-year-old daughter, Lily. In his arms, it all wrapped around me like a suffocating net. I, like a fool, nodded. I thought I was sacrificing 3 years of my freedom for the integrity of our family, for my husband's gratitude, for a stable future. I was the world's biggest fool. Standing on the desolate asphalt road outside the prison gates, I took a deep breath of free air, only to inhale a throatful of dust. I fumbled for the old, outdated smartphone in my folder. It had been off for 3 years. With trembling fingers, I pressed the power button. The screen lit up. It still had a sliver of battery. No missed calls, no text messages, only a service message from AT&T about my inactive account. A cold hand seemed to squeeze my heart. I forced myself to stay calm and dialed the number I knew by heart, Kevin's cell. "We're sorry. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. Asterisk. No longer in service." A chill shot up from my feet and consumed my entire body. Shaking, I dialed my mother-in-law's number. Same message. My sister-in-law's? The same. Even the landline for our old apartment disconnected. Asterisk. It's impossible. Maybe they moved, changed their numbers. Maybe they wanted to surprise me. Kevin did say he wanted a bigger house. Asterisk. Clinging to that last shred of hope, I used the last of my money to hail a cab, giving the driver the address of our old place, a small, 650-square-foot apartment in a working-class neighborhood. The car stopped in front of the old brick building. I rushed up to the 3rd floor and stood before the familiar dark green security door. I raised my hand to knock but froze. The lock had been replaced. It was a new, silver-gray smart lock, its surface coldly reflecting the light from the hallway window. That wasn't our lock. I started pounding on the door like a madwoman. "Hello? Is anyone there? Open up! Kevin! Karen! Lily!" After what felt like an eternity, the door to the next apartment opened. A middle-aged woman I didn't recognize peeked out, eyeing me with suspicion. "Who are you looking for?" "The family that lived here moved out a long time ago." "Moved?" I grabbed onto her words like a lifeline. "When did they move? Where did they go?" "Almost 2 years ago, I think," she said, sounding annoyed. "They sold the place. How should I know where they went?" She started to close the door. Wait! My voice trembled. Do you know if the Cole family, the people who lived here before, left anything behind? A message, maybe? For someone named Eva Thompson? The woman frowned, thinking, Eva Thompson. The name sounds familiar. Hold on. She disappeared back into her apartment and returned a moment later with a worn, yellowed manila envelope. Here. About a year ago, a man came back. Said if a woman named Eva Thompson ever showed up, I should give this to her. I figured no one was ever coming for it. The envelope was feather-light. I thanked the neighbor, my fingers numb as I tore it open. Inside, there was no letter, no photograph, no explanation, just a single piece of paper. A divorce decree. Date of issue, June 7th, 2024. That was 1 year and 3 months after I went to prison. Next to my printed name was Kevin's flamboyant signature. On the line for grounds for divorce, 2 phrases were typed in cold, black ink. Asterisk. Irreconcilable. Differences. Long-term separation. Asterisk. Asterisk. Long-term separation. Irreconcilable differences. Asterisk. Asterisk. Ha ha ha. Asterisk. I clutched the thin piece of paper, standing in the empty hallway. I tried to laugh, but only a ragged, hollow sound escaped my throat. My eyes were already dry. They just ached. 3 years of prison. I took his crime, endured his hardship, and counted the days in the darkest, filthiest of places, surviving on the fictional future he had promised me. And what did I get in return? My family had vanished without a trace. A divorce, filed and finalized without my knowledge. My husband, my daughter, my home while I was serving time for them, they had completely, cleanly, and utterly abandoned me. There was nothing else in the envelope. Not a single dollar. Not a word of explanation. Not even a hint as to where they had taken my daughter, Lily. They had erased every trace of me, as if I had never existed. I leaned against the peeling wall to keep from collapsing. A gaping hole had been torn in my chest, and a cold wind howled through it 1,000 times colder than the harshest winter night in prison. I don't know how I made it back downstairs. The sun was still blindingly bright. The streets were bustling with cars and people. The vibrant world of the living was separated from me by a thick, invisible wall of glass. I was a ghost, wandering aimlessly. 3 years. The world hadn't changed much, and yet it felt entirely different. I didn't belong. Unconsciously, I found myself at a plaza in a downtown shopping district. People bustled up and down a wide set of stairs. I felt dazed, wanting only to find a corner to curl up in. Just then, a series of shouts erupted from above and to my side. "Look out! Get out of the way! The wheelchair! The brakes are gone!" I snapped my head up. At the top of the dozen or so stairs nearby, a silver wheelchair was careening downwards, completely out of control. An elderly man with a full head of white hair sat in it, his hands gripping the armrests, his face pale with terror. Below the stairs were the hard concrete pavers of the plaza and unsuspecting pedestrians. If it crashed, the consequences would be unthinkable. It was almost instinct. The one thing I'd learned in prison, besides endurance, was to react instantly to emergencies. My body moved before my mind could process it. I lunged forward, calculating the wheelchair's trajectory. I wasn't foolish enough to try and block it head-on. The momentum was too great. Instead, I threw myself sideways, slamming my shoulder and arm hard against the side of the chair. Thud, a dull, heavy impact. A searing pain shot through my shoulder, but I had successfully altered its course. The wheelchair, carrying its immense force, scraped past my body, tumbled awkwardly down the last 2 steps, and crashed onto its side on the flat ground. The impact sent me sprawling to the pavement. My palms and knees scraped against the concrete. A raw, burning sting. "Sir, are you okay?" People rushed over, helping the old man. They carefully lifted him from the overturned chair. Aside from the shock, he seemed physically unharmed. He stood, supported by others, breathing heavily. I pushed myself up, wincing, and brushed the dust off my clothes, preparing to slip away unnoticed. It was just a moment of reckless compassion. I didn't need thanks or attention. "Young lady, wait, please!" the old man called out, his voice surprisingly strong and commanding, though still a bit breathless. I stopped and turned. He was standing on his own now, looking to be in his late 70s. He wore an impeccably tailored, dark gray tweed jacket. Though he'd been in a wheelchair, his posture was ramrod straight. His face was sharp, and his eyes, deep-set and intelligent, were now fixed on me. "Thank you," he said, his tone sincere and grateful. "If it wasn't for you, this old bag of bones would have been done for today. It was nothing. Anyone would have done the same," I mumbled, my voice hoarse. I turned to leave again. "You're hurt," he said, noticing my scraped hands and knees, and the way I winced. "That was a hard hit to your shoulder. It's just a scratch. I'm fine." "Wait!" He gestured to a man at his side who looked like an assistant or bodyguard, and then his gaze suddenly froze, locking onto my neck, more precisely, on the gold locket that had slipped out from under my collar during the fall. It was the only thing my mother had left me. A simple, oval-shaped gold locket on a thin chain. I had managed to hide it when I was processed into prison, and I had worn it against my skin for 3 years. It was my last connection to her. The old man's eyes widened. The gratitude on his face was replaced by an expression of utter shock and disbelief. He leaned forward, ignoring the people supporting him, and stared at the locket, his voice trembling. "That locket. Where did you get that locket? Is your last name Thompson?" I froze, my hand instinctively closing around the locket on my chest. I stared back at the old man, who was now trembling with emotion. He knew this locket? And he knew my mother's married name? How did you know? I was completely bewildered. The pain in my body vanished, replaced by a storm of confusion. The old man didn't answer immediately. His eyes remained fixed on the locket, a maelstrom of emotions swirling within them: shock, joy, nostalgia, and a flicker of deep pain. His lips trembled as if he were about to confirm something of monumental importance. He spoke, his voice barely a whisper, but each word hit me like a thunderclap. "On the back, is there a tiny, elegant initial engraved on it?" I was thunderstruck, completely stunned. When my mother gave me the locket, she did mention there was a tiny, almost invisible engraving on the back, a mark left by her grandmother, but she never told me what it was. Only that it was a keepsake. I had rarely looked at it closely myself. How could he possibly know? Seeing my reaction, the old man understood everything. He closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them again, they were rimmed with red. He pushed away his assistant and tried to take a step toward me, his voice shaking with an uncontrollable urgency. "My child, was your mother's name Eleanor Hayes? Asterisk Eleanor Hayes. Asterisk my mother's name. A name that, since her death from illness when I was 10, had almost never been spoken." I stood there, dumbfounded, staring at this stranger, this distinguished, wheelchair-bound old man. My mind was a complete blank. Today, on the first day of my freedom, at the very moment I had been abandoned by the entire world, I saved an old man. And this old man, looking at my mother's locket, had just spoken her name. Who was he? The noise of the plaza seemed to fade away. The surrounding crowd, the lights, the sounds all blurred into a distant backdrop. In my world, there was only this old man, his eyes red with emotion, and the name that had just left his lips. Asterisk Eleanor Hayes. Asterisk. My mother. You knew my mother? My voice was dry and raspy. The knuckles of the hand clutching the locket were white from the pressure. My heart hammered against my ribs, a chaotic mix of fear and a sliver of impossible hope tangling inside me like vines. The old man didn't answer right away. He just looked at me, his gaze so complex I couldn't decipher it, as if he were looking through me to find the ghost of someone else. After a long moment, he took a deep, steadying breath. Knew her? He murmured. It was more than that. He turned to the sharp-faced man in his 30s who had been silently supporting him. Alex, first, take this young lady to a hospital to get her injuries checked. He paused. Then his gaze, now incredibly solemn, fell back on me. His tone became decisive, leaving no room for argument. No. Take her home. Have Dr. Evans meet us there immediately. Asterisk home? To his home? Asterisk. I instinctively took a step back. My guard up. 3 years in prison had filled me with a primal distrust of strangers, especially of sudden kindness. Even though he knew my mother's name, this was all too strange. Sir, thank you for your concern, but I'm fine. They're just scrapes, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You knew my mother. Could you please tell me who you are? What is all this about? The old man saw my wariness. A flicker of understanding, followed by a deeper pain and pity, crossed his face. That look made me profoundly uncomfortable, as if I were some fragile, wronged object. He didn't press the issue. Instead, he turned and gave his assistant, Alex, a few quiet instructions. Alex nodded, stepped aside to make a quick phone call, then returned, holding a tasteful, gold-embossed business card. He offered it to me with both hands. I hesitated before taking it. The card was simple. Asterisk, asterisk. Arthur Vance. Asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, chairman of the board. Vance Consolidated. Asterisk, asterisk. Vance Consolidated. Even for someone who had been disconnected from society for 3 years, the name was legendary. It was one of the largest privately owned conglomerates in the state, if not the country, with interests in real estate, finance, and technology. A true corporate empire. Its name occasionally appeared in the financial news. A symbol of a world far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Arthur Vance. I snapped my head up to look at the man in the wheelchair. He was the legendary Arthur Vance? The self-made tycoon who had dominated the business world for decades? But how could a man like him know my mother, who had lived a simple life and died young? Why would he have such an intense reaction to her locket? My child, Arthur Vance said, his gaze warm but firm. I know you have 1,000 questions, and I understand your caution, but this isn't the place to talk. Your injuries need attention, and we have much to discuss. About your mother, about this locket, about many things you may not know. He paused, his voice dropping, heavy with the weight of years. I've been searching for some answers for a very long time. Today, I may have finally found them. There was a strange power in his voice, a mix of authority, sincerity, and an urgent, undeniable sorrow. I couldn't explain it, but the mention of my mother was like a key that unlocked the hardened shell around my heart. I looked down at my scraped, dirty palm, then at my shabby, out-of-place clothes and my empty pockets. Where else could I go? Back to the home that was no longer mine? Or wander the streets? A profound sense of exhaustion and aimlessness washed over me. Everything that had happened today, my release, the abandonment, the divorce decree, saving this man, this bizarre encounter had drained every last ounce of my strength, almost against my will. I nodded. Maybe it was the weight carried by the name Arthur Vance. Maybe it was the genuine grief in his eyes when he spoke of my mother. Or maybe it was simply because I had nowhere else to go, and a sliver of light had appeared in the darkness, even if it might just be an illusion. Okay, I whispered. Arthur Vance let out a visible sigh of relief, a faint smile touching his lips. Good. Alex, let's go. Alex pushed the wheelchair, and I followed them across the plaza to a black sedan parked at the curb. It was a discreet but luxurious Rolls-Royce. Alex carefully helped Mr. Vance into the car, then opened the other door for me. As I sank into the soft leather seat, the quiet, insulated space, and the faint, elegant scent of cedar felt like a world away from the last 3 years of my life, and indeed, my entire life before that. The contrast was jarring, almost absurd. I sat rigidly, my fingers tracing the edges of the embossed business card. The car glided away from the city center, heading towards the famous Eagle's Crest Estates, a neighborhood known as a haven for the ultra-wealthy. I had only ever seen it on TV. The ride was silent. Mr. Vance had his eyes closed, but I could tell his emotions were still in turmoil. Alex focused on driving. I stared out the window at the cityscape rushing by. My mind a chaotic mess. Asterisk. Where were Kevin and his family now? How was Lily? Why were they so cruel? How did they manage to get that divorce decree without me? Asterisk. The questions gnawed at me like venomous snakes. And what about this sudden appearance of Arthur Vance? Was this a blessing or a curse? About 40 minutes later, the car turned onto a quiet, wooded lane and stopped before a massive, wrought iron gate. The gate swung open automatically, and we drove into a breathtaking estate, a sprawling lawn, meticulously manicured gardens, artfully placed trees, and in the distance, an elegant, sprawling mansion built in a classic style. The place was immense, so quiet you could only hear the wind rustling through the leaves and the faint call of birds. It was another universe compared to the noisy city I had just left, and an even starker contrast to the cold, cramped prison cell. The car stopped at the main entrance, where a middle-aged butler and several staff members were already waiting. Alex got out first, skillfully retrieved the wheelchair, and, with the butler's help, gently assisted Mr. Vance into it. "Sir, Dr. Evans is here. He's waiting in the medical room," the butler reported. Mr. Vance nodded, then turned his gentle gaze to me, standing awkwardly by the car. "My child, let Dr. Evans take a look at your injuries first. Get changed into something clean. We can talk later. Don't be nervous. Make yourself at home." Asterisk, my own home. Asterisk, I gave a bitter, silent laugh. I didn't have one anymore, but I was here now, so I had to see it through. I followed a kind-looking, middle-aged housekeeper into the palatial home. The interior was decorated in a sophisticated, traditional style, with rich wood paneling, fine furniture, and what looked like priceless antiques and art. Yet, it wasn't ostentatious. It exuded a sense of deep, established wealth. The medical room on the first floor was as well equipped as a small clinic. Dr. Evans, a distinguished man with gold-rimmed glasses, was waiting. He professionally and gently cleaned and disinfected my scraped palms and knees. He examined my shoulder, badly bruised, but no bones were broken. He prescribed some topical cream. They're just surface wounds. "Keep them dry and apply the ointment, and they'll heal quickly," he said kindly. After my injuries were treated, the housekeeper led me to a guest room on the second floor. It was spacious and bright, with a private bathroom and a balcony overlooking the exquisite gardens. "Miss Thompson, we've prepared some clothes and toiletries for you in the bathroom. They're all new. Please, wash up and rest." Mr. Vance said that whenever you're ready, you can find him in his study on the third floor. It's the first door on the left at the top of the stairs. After her polite instructions, she quietly closed the door, leaving me alone. I stood on the plush carpet, looking around the room that was larger and more luxurious than my entire old apartment. It all felt so surreal. Everything had happened too fast, too strangely. I went into the bathroom. A huge jacuzzi tub, high-end fixtures. The medicine cabinet was stocked with a full set of unopened luxury skincare and cosmetics. On a nearby rack, a soft, cream-colored lounge set was neatly folded, along with new undergarments. The size even looked right. When had they prepared all this? Did Alex call ahead from the car? I shook my head, not wanting to overthink it. The warm water washed over my body, rinsing away the grime of prison and the dust of the day. It also temporarily washed away some of the exhaustion and the ache in my heart. Dressed in the clean, comfortable clothes, I looked at the woman in the mirror, pale, with dark circles under her eyes, but the lifelessness in her gaze was gone. I took a deep breath. It was time to face him. Whatever Arthur Vance was, whatever he was about to tell me about my mother, I had to know. I left the room and walked down the carpeted hallway to the third floor. At the top of the stairs, the first door on the left was made of heavy, dark wood. I raised my hand and knocked softly. "Come in," Mr. Vance's voice called from inside. I pushed the door open. It was an enormous study. 2 walls were covered with floor-to-ceiling mahogany bookshelves, crammed with books. Another wall was a single, massive picture window overlooking a distant lake. In the center of the room, on a thick rug, sat a large desk and a comfortable sofa arrangement. The air smelled of old books, ink, and a faint, medicinal scent. Mr. Vance was no longer in his wheelchair but seated in a large armchair behind the desk, a light blanket over his lap. 2 steaming cups of tea sat on the desk. "Sit, my child," he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. I sat down stiffly, my back straight, my hands clasped in my lap, a posture of unconscious defense and anxiety. Mr. Vance didn't speak right away. He just studied me, his expression still complex. After a long moment, he sighed softly. "You have your mother's eyes and her chin, especially when she was young." He picked up his teacup and took a sip, as if choosing his words carefully. "First, let me properly introduce myself. My name is Arthur Vance. I was an old friend of your mother's." He set the cup down, his gaze growing distant as he drifted into memory. "A long, long time ago. More than 40 years now, I suppose. Your mother and I met while we were doing volunteer work in a very poor, rural part of Appalachia." I was stunned. Asterisk Appalachia? Asterisk. That would have been in the 1970s. My mother had never spoken in detail about that time in her life, only that she had endured hardships when she was young. "We were both so young then," Mr. Vance said, his voice laced with both nostalgia and a heavy sadness. "Your mother, Eleanor? She was an incredibly kind, strong, and independent young woman. We spent a few years there together, supporting each other through some very difficult times. Later, due to a series of unfortunate events, we lost contact." His fingers traced the rim of his teacup, his knuckles white. "By the time I managed to get back to the city and find a way to look for her, she had already left. I asked everyone I could think of. I only found out that she had eventually gone back to her hometown, gotten married, and had a child. Her life seemed peaceful. I thought she was happy, so I never tried to interfere." His voice grew quiet, filled with an unspeakable regret and pain. "Then, about 10 years ago, I heard from an old acquaintance that she had passed away from an illness years earlier, leaving behind a daughter." Mr. Vance's gaze returned to me, filled with remorse and pity. "I thought about finding you, taking care of you, but the information I had was that you were being raised by your father's relatives. Later, I heard you'd gotten married and started a family of your own, that your life was stable. I thought perhaps not disturbing you was the best thing I could do. After all, I owed your mother so much." Asterisk owed her? Asterisk. My heart skipped a beat. This locket. Mr. Vance's eyes softened as he looked at the locket I was still clutching. "I gave that to your mother before I had to leave Appalachia. It wasn't worth much. I had no money back then. It was just a simple piece of gold, but I had someone secretly engrave an E on the back. For Eleanor. I told her to think of me when she saw it, to let it keep her safe." My fingertips brushed over the locket's smooth surface. So that was the engraving. He had it done. This locket. It was a token of their love. Then he and my mother. "So you and my mother?" I couldn't help but ask, my voice tight. Arthur Vance was silent for a moment before he answered slowly. "We were in love. We had even promised ourselves to each other. But in those days, so many things were out of our control. My family situation was complicated. I was forced to return to the city suddenly, and a series of events followed that severed our connection completely. By the time I finally had control of my own destiny, it was too late. Everything had changed. It is the greatest regret of my life. He looked at me, his eyes pleading. My child, I know this is all very sudden for you. I don't mean to intrude, and I certainly don't want to use our past to pressure you in any way. It's just seeing this locket, seeing you. I couldn't control myself. Eleanor's daughter, appearing before me in such a way, and even saving my life. Perhaps this is fate's way of giving me a chance to make amends. Asterisk. Make amends. Asterisk. I was struggling to process the flood of information. A deep, lost love from my mother's youth. Her lover, now a titan of industry. A love story ended by cruel fate. My mother then married my father, a simple, almost timid man. Lived a life of poverty, and died young. And now I, her daughter, at the lowest, most desperate point in my life, had coincidentally saved this long-lost love. The plot was more dramatic than any soap opera. Mr. Vance, I said, trying to keep my composure. Thank you for telling me all this. It explains some things. But this is, after all, between you and my mother. Right now, I just need to deal with my own life. I looked up and met his eyes. Though his powerful gaze was intimidating, I pressed on. I just got out of prison today. I took the fall for my ex-husband and served 3 years. I came out to find he had taken my daughter and family and vanished, leaving me with a divorce decree I knew nothing about. I have nothing. I don't even know where my daughter is. My voice was calm, terrifyingly so, as if I were narrating someone else's tragedy. You said this was a chance to make amends. Well, Mr. Vance. I paused, my heart thumping heavily. As the daughter of an old friend, as someone who just saved your life, can I ask you for a favor? Arthur Vance's expression had turned grim the moment I mentioned taking the fall, prison, and the divorce. His eyes filled with shock and rage. Hearing my request, he didn't hesitate for a second. With an urgency to right some cosmic wrong, he said, Child, ask anything. If it's in my power, I will not refuse. I looked him in the eye and said, word by word, I want to know where Kevin Cole, my ex-husband, and my daughter, Lily Cole, are right now. And I want to know what really happened these past 3 years. Arthur Vance's eyes grew sharp. The nostalgic, grieving old man vanished, replaced by a seasoned leader accustomed to command. He leaned forward and pressed a button on his desk. Alex, come in. Alex entered as silently as a shadow and stood by the desk. Sir? Mr. Vance didn't look at me. His brief display of emotion was gone, replaced by an unshakable authority. Alex, I want you to personally investigate 2 things. First, find a man named Kevin Cole and his immediate family, especially his mother and sister. He glanced at me. I quickly added, and my daughter Lily Cole. She should be 4 years old now. And possibly Kevin's new partner, a woman named Jessica Reed. She was a former colleague of his at the company. These were details from before my incarceration. Thinking back now, perhaps the signs were there all along, and I was just too naive to see them. Mr. Vance nodded and continued his instructions to Alex. I want all of their movements over the past 3 years, especially in the last year. Current address, contact information, employment status, financial situation. Social circles, the more detailed, the better. And specifically, find out how they managed to process a divorce without Eva's knowledge. Who handled it, and what methods were used. Second, Mr. Vance's voice grew heavier. I want you to dig into that embezzlement case from 3 years ago. The company involved, the exact amount, the basis for the conviction. He paused, his gaze like steel. I want to know who really embezzled that money. I want the entire chain of evidence, every person involved, any irregularities. Dig it all up. Yes, sir, Alex replied without a hint of surprise, as if he'd just been asked to fetch a cup of tea. He bowed slightly and then turned to me, his tone respectful but efficient. Miss Thompson, Could you please provide any and all detailed information you have on Kevin Cole and his family? Previous addresses, social security numbers, past employers, license plate numbers. The more details, the better. I took a deep breath and dredged up the information from my chaotic memory. Kevin's social security number, his old cell phone number, even though it was disconnected, our old address, his parents' address in their hometown, his sister Brenda's last known workplace at a department store, his former employer, Summit Trading Incorporated, his license plate number. And Jessica Reed, I only knew her name, and that she was Kevin's colleague. Alex quickly typed everything into a tablet, occasionally asking a precise, clarifying question. Miss Thompson, do you have your daughter's date and hospital of birth? Which county clerk's office issued your marriage license? Do you recall the court and case number for the trial 3 years ago? Some details I remembered, others were hazy. Alex simply nodded, indicating he had enough to go on. When he was done, he looked at Mr. Vance. Sir, I'll start immediately. We should have preliminary information by this evening. Go, Mr. Vance said. Use all necessary resources. I want to see the results as soon as possible. Alex bowed again and left as silently as he had arrived, closing the study door softly behind him. The room was quiet again. Just the two of us. The scent of tea filled the air, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Mr. Vance looked at me, his gaze deep. Child, until Alex has answers, I want you to stay here. There are plenty of rooms, and it's quiet. You need to rest and recover. Mr. Vance, I couldn't possibly impose, I began, instinctively refusing. I couldn't accept such an enormous favor from a near stranger. My mother's past wasn't a justification for me to freeload. It's not an imposition, Arthur interrupted, his tone gentle but firm. First, you saved my life today. I, Arthur Vance, always repay my debts. That is a debt I must honor. Second, a flicker of pain crossed his eyes. You are Eleanor's daughter. Seeing you in this situation, I cannot stand by and do nothing. This isn't just about making amends to your mother. It's about doing right by you. Within my power, I will not let you suffer any more injustice. He paused, adding, think of this as a temporary sanctuary, a place where you can catch your breath and figure out your next steps. Once we have the full picture, whether you decide to stay or go, whatever you choose to do, I will respect your decision. His words were reasonable and gave me the space and respect I needed. The truth was, I had nowhere to go. I was penniless. I didn't even know where my next meal would come from. Kevin's family had vanished, and my daughter was missing. I was like a kite with its string cut, adrift in a storm. Staying here, at least for now, was safe, and it was the fastest way to get the answers I desperately needed. Thank you, Mr. Vance, I said, my eyes downcast. This kindness was too sudden, too immense, but I had no other choice. Call me Arthur. Or Uncle Arthur if you'd like, he said, his voice softening. I've had the staff prepare some clothes and daily necessities for you. If you need anything else, just tell the butler. There's a gym and a home theater on the 3rd floor. Feel free to walk in the garden. Don't just stay cooped up in your room. I nodded. One more thing, Arthur said, hesitating for a moment. Your shoulder needs another look from Dr. Evans, and since you've just been released, you need to take care of your physical and mental well-being. Tomorrow, I'm going to have my personal therapist come and speak with you. Don't resist the idea. It's not about being sick. It's just talking to a professional. It will help. His arrangements were meticulous, thoughtful, and left no room for refusal. Was this how powerful people operated? Okay, I said, not arguing. A therapist. Maybe he was right. My current state of mind definitely needed some help, even if it was just a lifeline. We sat for a little while longer, and I drank half a cup of the now lukewarm tea before excusing myself. Arthur didn't keep me, only reminding me to get some rest. Back in the luxurious guest room, I sat on the soft sofa, staring out at the lake as dusk settled over the estate. The feeling of unreality was overwhelming. Today's events felt like a bizarre, chaotic dream. Kevin's cruel betrayal, Arthur Vance's sudden appearance, my mother's hidden past. The sheer volume of it all was exhausting, yet my mind was painfully awake. I went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror again. A pale face, faint dark circles under the eyes. There was exhaustion and pain in my expression. But deep down, something else was beginning to stir. A tiny ember glowing in the darkness. Was it hatred? A bone-deep hatred for Kevin and his parasitic family. Was it injustice? For the 3 years of my youth, I had wasted, for the daughter who was stolen from me, for the trust that had been trampled. And there was a faint flicker of hope. Something I barely dared to acknowledge. What could Arthur Vance's intervention change? No. I couldn't pin all my hopes on someone else. Arthur was helping me, perhaps out of a sense of duty to my mother, but ultimately, this was my life, my battle. I needed strength. I needed money. I needed connections. I needed the truth. I needed to take back what was mine. I clutched the locket at my chest. Its smooth, warm touch calmed me slightly. Asterisk, Mother. If you can see me, please tell me what to do. Asterisk. That night, I lay on the impossibly soft bed, but sleep wouldn't come. My mind replayed the images over and over. Kevin kneeling and begging. Lily's sweet, smiling face. My mother-in-law's sharp tongue. My sister-in-law's smug expression, and that cold, hard divorce decree. I finally drifted off as dawn was breaking, only to be trapped in a series of strange, unsettling dreams. I don't know how long I slept before a gentle knock on the door woke me. It was the housekeeper with a breakfast tray, delicate pastries, fresh fruit, and warm milk. She told me Mr. Vance was already having his breakfast and asked if I would prefer to eat in my room or join him in the dining room. In my room is fine, thank you. I wasn't ready to integrate into this strange new world just yet. Shortly after breakfast, Dr. Evans came to check on my injuries and change the dressing. He said they were healing well. Then, a well-dressed, gentle-looking middle-aged woman knocked on my door. She introduced herself as Mr. Vance's personal therapist, Dr. Reed. Dr. Reed was professional and skilled at conversation. She didn't press me for anything, just chatted idly, asking how I was feeling, how I slept, if I had any discomfort. Slowly, she guided the conversation toward my feelings about being released and my thoughts on the future. I was guarded at first, but her calm demeanor was disarming. Before I knew it, I was telling her bits and pieces of it all, the confusion of being abandoned, the longing for my daughter, the overwhelming hatred. All of these emotions are completely normal, Eva, Dr. Reed said softly. The important thing is not to let them control you, not to let them consume you. You need to give yourself time, and you need to find sources of support, whether from others or from within yourself. Mr. Vance cares a great deal about you. This is a safe place. For now, you can just focus on finding your footing. Asterisk. Finding my footing. Asterisk. Yes. For the last 3 years, and especially in the whirlwind of the past day, I had been tossed about in a violent storm. Now, perhaps, I could finally reach a shore, catch my breath, and think. After Dr. Reed left, I went out onto the balcony. The sun was warm, and the garden was bursting with life. I took a deep breath of the fresh air, trying to sort through my tangled thoughts. Waiting was agonizing. Every minute, every second, I wondered what news Alex would bring back. Where were Kevin and his family? Were they living well? How was Lily? And what about the case? Time crawled by in a haze of anxious waiting. Lunch was brought to my room. It was a lavish spread, but I had no appetite. In the afternoon, I took a walk in the garden. The estate was vast, with a large greenhouse in the back filled with rare and exotic flowers, tended by a full-time gardener. Everything spoke of the owner's immense wealth and taste. It was evening. As the setting sun painted the sky in shades of gold and crimson, that Alex returned. He didn't come to see me directly, but went straight to Arthur Vance's study. I watched his car pull up from my second-floor window, my heart pounding. About half an hour later, the housekeeper knocked on my door. "Miss Thompson, Mr. Vance would like to see you in the study." This was it. I composed myself, smoothed down the simple but well-fitting dress the Vance household had provided for me, and went to the third-floor study. I knocked and entered. Arthur was still behind his desk. Alex stood at attention beside him. Several folders and a laptop were open on the desk. Arthur's expression was grave, almost grim. He gestured for me to sit, then looked at Alex. "Alex, tell Miss Thompson what you've found." "Yes, sir." Alex turned to me. His face was impassive, but his eyes held a glint of cold steel. "Miss Thompson, based on the information you provided, we conducted a preliminary investigation. The following has been confirmed, though some details still require further verification." His voice was steady and clear, like someone giving a standard report. But every word he spoke was a hammer blow to my heart. First, regarding the current status of Kevin Cole and his family. 2 years ago, in May of 2024, Kevin sold the property you co-owned. The sale price was approximately $220,000. The following month, after a default judgment for divorce was granted on the grounds of irreconcilable differences and long-term separation, he married a woman named Jessica Reed. Jessica Reed, formerly an administrative assistant at Summit Trading Incorporated, resigned in late 2023. Currently, Kevin Cole, Jessica Reed, Kevin's mother Karen Cole, his sister Brenda Cole, and your daughter, Lily Cole, reside together at Lakeside Estates, in a 4-bedroom, 2,000-square-foot home. The property was purchased in August 2024. It is registered under both Kevin and Jessica's names and was paid for in full. The purchase price was approximately $850,000. Kevin is currently the vice president of a newly established company, Cole Construction. The company has a registered capital of $1 million, and Kevin holds a 30% stake. Our investigation shows a strong correlation between the company's initial funding and the timeline and amounts from the sale of your old home and the liquidation of some of your premarital assets. His mother, Karen, is primarily responsible for taking care of Lily and the household. His sister, Brenda, has no steady employment, but her recent credit card statements show purchases of multiple luxury handbags and jewelry. Jessica Reed is currently about 5 months pregnant. Lakeside Estates, that was one of the city's most exclusive gated communities. An $850,000 house, paid in cash. Vice president, a 30% stake. Luxury goods. I listened to the cold, hard facts, feeling the blood rush to my head, then instantly freeze into ice. A roaring filled my ears. I could barely stay upright in my chair. So that was it. That was it. I went to prison for him. And he was out here selling our home, liquidating what was mine, and using the money from my sacrifice to live a life of luxury, buying mansions, starting companies, marrying a new woman. They even had a child on the way. My daughter. My Lily. Living with the man who sent her mother to prison, with the woman who stole her father, with the cruel, heartless people she called her grandmother and aunt. Living in a big house bought with her mother's humiliation and freedom. I heard a low, raspy sound escape my throat, like a broken accordion. I wanted to laugh, but it sounded worse than a sob. My fingernails dug into my palms. The newly formed scabs on my wounds must have split open again. But I felt no pain. The agony in my heart overshadowed everything. Alex seemed to pause, waiting for me to compose myself, if you could call it that, before continuing in his flat, emotionless tone. Second, regarding the embezzlement case from 3 years ago. According to our preliminary review, Summit Trading Incorporated reported that finance assistant Eva Thompson, you used your position to embezzle $150,000 of company funds. The primary evidence consisted of forged financial documents with your signature which, according to a preliminary handwriting analysis, has a high probability of being a skilled forgery, and the testimony of Kevin Cole as the informant and key witness. Because of your good attitude in confessing and the timely return of the stolen funds, which was actually Kevin using your personal savings and some borrowed money to cover the loss, you received a lighter sentence. However, our analysis of bank records and other peripheral information shows that the $150,000 shortfall was actually diverted to an undisclosed side project that Kevin was managing at the time. During that same period, Kevin's personal bank account received several large, unexplained deposits. Furthermore, one of the police detectives who handled the initial investigation was a close college friend of Kevin's. We have currently identified several key individuals, including the precinct's deputy chief at the time, the lead detective, and Summit Trading's former chief financial officer. Further evidence gathering and verification are underway. We have reason to believe this was a premeditated frame-up, orchestrated by Kevin Cole, potentially involving obstruction of justice. Asterisk frame-up. Obstruction of justice. Asterisk. Though I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed still made me feel dizzy and sick. It wasn't just a suspicion, it was a near certainty. Kevin, he not only made me take the fall, but he meticulously planned it, forged evidence, and possibly even bribed law enforcement. He pushed me into hell, and then built his new life on my ashes. Monster. Scum. I bit my lips so hard that the taste of blood filled my mouth, just to keep from screaming and destroying everything in the room. Arthur Vance had been listening in silence, his face a thunderous mask. Only after Alex finished did he speak, his voice calm but seething with an impending storm. Alex, how reliable is this information? 80% confirmed, sir. We have hard evidence for some of the financial trails and personal connections. The rest can be fully corroborated within 2 days, including testimony from the original participants. Alex's reply was firm. Mr. Vance nodded and turned to me. His eyes were filled with a heavy sorrow, but also a formidable anger. Child, he said, his voice deep, you've heard it all. The Cole family is not just heartless and ungrateful. Their actions likely constitute multiple felonies. That divorce decree was almost certainly obtained through illegal means. What are your thoughts? My thoughts? I looked up at Arthur, then at the damning evidence spread across his desk. The swirling tempest of hatred, rage, and grief in my chest finally coalesced into a single point of ice-cold resolve. My gaze must have been clearer and sharper than it had ever been in my life. I stood up slowly. Though my body still felt weak, my spine was straight. Uncle Arthur, I began, my voice hoarse from suppressed emotion but perfectly clear and steady. I want to take back everything that belongs to me. I want to make Kevin Cole pay. And I want my daughter back. I said it one word at a time, each syllable seeming to drip with blood and ice. Please, help me. Arthur Vance looked at me for a long moment. A look of appreciation and satisfaction in his eyes, but also a hint of cold determination. He leaned back in his chair and tapped a finger on the polished mahogany desk. Good, he said. Just one word. Then he looked at Alex, his tone flat but carrying an absolute authority. Alex, assemble the sharpest legal team from the corporate law department. Acting on behalf of Miss Eva Thompson, I want you to initiate legal proceedings immediately. First, sue to have the divorce decree vacated on the grounds of procedural fraud. Second, file criminal complaints against Kevin Cole and his accomplices for perjury, conspiracy to defraud, and obstruction of justice. At the same time, file a civil suit to seize all assets purchased with the embezzled funds and illegal gains, including the house and his company shares. Third, gather all evidence proving that Kevin Cole, his mother, and his sister are unfit to raise Lily Cole. This includes his moral character, his criminal activities, and any behavior that could negatively impact a child's development. Prepare for a custody battle. Fourth, Arthur's gaze was as sharp as a razor. Contact our trusted friends in the media. When the time is right, I want this story released, strategically. I want Kevin Cole's reputation destroyed. I want him to be a pariah in this city, with nowhere left to turn. Alex, his expression unchanged, bowed his head. Yes, sir. I'll get on it immediately. Arthur waved him away, and Alex left swiftly. The study was quiet once more. Arthur looked at me, his expression complex. Child, this path won't be easy. It could get ugly. Public opinion is a double-edged sword. You need to be prepared. I met his gaze without flinching. Uncle Arthur, I've already spent 3 years at the bottom of a pit. Nothing can be uglier than that, as long as I can get my daughter back and see that man get what he deserves. I'm not afraid of anything. Arthur nodded, a flicker of approval in his eyes. You have your mother's spirit, a gentle appearance, but a core of steel. He paused. The law and the media are the visible weapons. As for the rest... He trailed off, but the meaning in his eyes was clear. What Kevin was about to face was far more than just a lawsuit. For now, go and rest. The legal team will be here tomorrow to speak with you. You'll need to tell them everything you know, every detail. How Kevin coerced you, threatened you, or emotionally manipulated you into taking the fall. Don't leave anything out. And don't hold back because it's painful or embarrassing. The lawyers need all the information to build the strongest possible case for you. I understand, I said, nodding forcefully, as I left the study and walked down the quiet, carpeted hall. I felt a long-forgotten strength returning to my cold, empty shell. Asterisk. Kevin, Jessica, Karen, Brenda. You used my 3 years in prison to build your life of luxury, your happy family. You were dreaming. Asterisk. The show is just beginning. What is mine, I will take back, with interest. And what you owe me, I will make you repay. 100, 1,000 times over. The next 2 days felt like being swept up into a high-speed, precision machine. The extent of Arthur Vance's power was beyond my imagination. His sharpest legal team was no exaggeration. The next morning, 3 immaculately dressed, sharp-minded lawyers arrived at the mansion. The lead was a woman in her 40s with gold-rimmed glasses and a piercing gaze named Miss Pierce, the head of Vance Consolidated's legal department, specializing in criminal litigation and major corporate disputes. The other 2 were a Mr. Davis, an expert in civil litigation and family law, and a senior legal investigator, Mr. Sullivan. Miss Pierce wasted no time on pleasantries. She immediately laid out the legal strategy, her logic clear and concise. Miss Thompson, based on the evidence we have and Mr. Vance's instructions, we will be pursuing a multi-front strategy, she said, her tone cool and professional. On the criminal front, the focus will be on holding Kevin Cole and his associates accountable for perjury, conspiracy to defraud, and potential bribery and obstruction of justice. This requires an airtight chain of evidence, which we are currently building. On the civil front, we will first file to have the original divorce decree vacated on the grounds of gross procedural misconduct and your inability to express true consent while incarcerated. Second, we will file for damages and restitution, demanding that Mr. Cole forfeit all assets acquired with embezzled funds and proceeds from the sale of your shared property, as well as compensation for your emotional distress. Finally, and this is your primary objective, we will fight for the custody of Lily Cole. We will focus on proving that Mr. Spost, Cole's home environment is unsuitable for raising a child, citing his criminal activities, his deplorable moral character, and the potential for emotional abuse or neglect. For example, the act of hiding your existence from your daughter for 3 years is in itself a form of severe emotional harm. Miss Pierce adjusted her glasses. We need you to provide every possible detail, especially about how Kevin convinced you to take the fall. His exact words, his promises, any threats, anything that proves you made that decision under duress, deceit, or a fundamental misunderstanding is crucial for vacating the divorce and for all subsequent claims. I sat across from them, forcing myself to relive that day my life fell apart. Every word, every expression. Kevin's tears, his pleas, the future he painted, the way he held Lily. 3 years later, The memory was still a dull knife, twisting in my scarred heart. He said if he didn't go to prison, our family would be ruined, his parents' house would be lost, and Lily would suffer. I recounted, my voice tight. He said the amount wasn't that big, 3 years at most. And he'd work like crazy while I was gone so we'd have a good life when I got out. The lawyers listened, taking notes, their faces impassive. Their professional detachment, devoid of pity, strangely made it easier for me to continue. He knelt down. He said he loved me, he loved our family, and he couldn't lose us. I truly believed that if I just did this one thing, our family would be safe. Tears I thought were long gone began to fall. Not from weakness, but from the years of pent-up humiliation and rage. I was so stupid. So incredibly stupid. I believed him. I thought sacrificing myself would save everyone. It's not entirely your fault, Miss Thompson, Miss Pierce said, pausing her writing. Her voice was even but firm. You were emotionally manipulated and defrauded by someone you trusted. In legal terms, that constitutes a decision made under significant duress and misrepresentation. Please, continue. What did he say about the specifics? The signatures? I wiped my tears, forcing myself to be calm. He said he had a way to handle the company's books. He just needed me to confess to the police that I'd taken the money out of a moment of weakness, for personal expenses, and to pay off some online debts. He said he had already found a way to pay the money back, so if I confessed and showed remorse, the sentence wouldn't be heavy. He even showed me the evidence he had prepared some fake receipts and bank transfer records. The more I remembered, the more details flooded back. The time, the place. We were the only two at home. His mother had taken Lily to the park. I recounted the conversation. His tone, his expressions, as clearly as I could. Mr. Sullivan, the investigator, would occasionally interject with questions about Kevin's social connections, his work habits, and his personality. Looking for more angles, the entire debriefing lasted nearly 4 hours. By the end, I felt utterly drained, but also strangely lighter. It was like lancing a wound, exposing the poison to the light. It hurt, but I knew it was the first step toward healing. Miss Pierce organized her thick stack of notes. Miss Thompson, the information you've provided is invaluable. We will use it to build our case. Regarding your daughter, Lily, Mr. Vance has already arranged for someone to discreetly inquire about her situation at her preschool and to try and ascertain her physical and mental well-being without alerting the Cole family. Please, try not to worry. My heart clenched. Lily? How is she? This was my most vulnerable spot, the one thing I was most afraid to touch. The initial report is that she's enrolled in the pre-K class at Sunshine Academy. On the surface, she seems to be adjusting normally, but we need to observe more closely to understand her situation at home. We're trying to find a way to speak with neighbors or a babysitter who might know more, Miss Pierce explained. In a custody battle, the child's well-being and environment are paramount to the judge. We must proceed with caution to avoid startling them or causing any further harm to the child. I nodded, understanding the stakes. I couldn't be rash. As much as I yearned to see my daughter, I couldn't risk scaring them and having Kevin do something desperate that might hurt Lily. After the legal team left, Arthur Vance's butler invited me to the tea room. It was on the first floor, more serene than the study, with a window looking out onto a small, trickling stream and a grove of bamboo. Arthur was brewing tea, his movements practiced and graceful. Sit, he said, handing me a warm cup. You've spoken with the lawyers. I held the warm cup, drawing strength from its heat. Yes, they were very professional and very brutal, I said honestly. It felt like tearing open an old wound to inspect the rot inside. Arthur was silent for a moment. The process of healing is always painful, he sighed. But you can only grow new flesh after the wound has been thoroughly cleaned. He looked at me. Miss, Pierce is one of my most capable assets. Her success rate is exceptionally high. She will fight for your best interests. You must trust her and cooperate with her. I understand. Uncle Arthur, thank you. Don't thank me, he said, shaking his head, his gaze distant. Consider it something I'm finally able to do for Eleanor, far too late. He changed the subject. But, child, you must be prepared. Once the legal process begins, Kevin will not just sit back and take it. He will likely fight back, possibly with even dirtier tactics. He might even try to use the child to threaten you. Once the media war starts, all sorts of mud could be slung your way. You need to be mentally strong. I met his gaze. My own eyes filled with a new, steely resolve. I know. The worst that can happen is I go back to prison, but this time, I'll be fighting for myself. For Lily, I will not back down again. A flicker of approval crossed Arthur's face. He nodded. Good. Remember what you said today. He refilled my cup, then mentioned, as if in passing, Alex has found a few more things. That construction company of Kevin's. Cole Construction. On the surface, it's in the building trade, but its financials are a bit murky. It seems to have ties to some local contractors with less than stellar reputations, possible bid rigging, fraudulent invoicing, even tax evasion. And that woman, Jessica Reed, her background isn't so simple either. She has a cousin who works at the local IRS office, a low-level position, but perhaps useful for certain favors. My mind raced. Arthur was telling me that beyond the official legal channels, he had other ways to make Kevin's life hell. This information, from the gray areas of the law, could be faster and more devastating than any courtroom battle. Uncle Arthur, are you saying? I'm saying, Arthur said, taking a slow sip of tea, his tone flat, that you use different methods for different kinds of people. Some people won't feel the pain until you've ripped away every last shred of their dignity and ground them into the dirt. The law is the baseline. The rules. But sometimes, making a man a social and financial pariah, leaving him with nothing and no one, is a far more effective lesson than a few years in jail. His words were devoid of malice, yet they sent a chill down my spine. This was the true nature of a titan who had navigated the treacherous waters of business for decades. But that's for later, Arthur said, setting his cup down. For now, the priority is to win the legal battle, to gain the upper hand, especially custody. That is your core objective. The rest can follow. I took a deep breath. I understand. Just then, Alex knocked softly and entered, holding a tablet. Sir, Miss Thompson, 2 new updates. Speak. First, our surveillance observed Kevin's mother, Karen Cole, taking Lily to a nearby mall's play area this afternoon. We have some photos and managed to observe the child up close. Physically, the girl is well dressed and seemed emotionally stable while playing. But she was very quiet. She didn't laugh much or interact with other children. Karen Cole sat on a bench nearby, on her phone the entire time, with very little interaction with the child. Alex handed me the tablet. It showed several candid photos. There was my Lily, in a pink dress, her hair in 2 little pigtails, standing alone by a ball pit, listlessly poking at the colorful plastic balls. Her profile looked so lonely, and there was her grandmother, Karen, just a few feet away, staring at her phone, her expression blank. A sharp pain, like a needle, pierced my heart. Lily used to be such a happy, vibrant child. Was it because her mother was gone? Or was that new home not as warm as it appeared on the surface? Second, Alex continued, as per Miss Pierce's request, we conducted a preliminary inquiry into the court and clerk's office that handled the divorce. We found several procedural irregularities. By law, when one spouse is unreachable, the other party must follow a strict public notification process and provide substantial evidence of marital breakdown. Kevin's evidence was incredibly thin. A few self-written statements and some vague testimony from a neighbor who was likely coached. The court's service by publication also appears to have been rushed and may not have followed proper procedure. More importantly, we found a record of a financial transaction between the court clerk who handled the case and a distant cousin of Kevin's. The amount was small, but the timing is highly suspicious, so Miss Pierce was right. That divorce decree was dirty. Excellent, Arthur said. Give all of this to Miss Pierce. Tell her to expedite the motion to vacate the divorce and prepare the criminal complaints at the same time. Yes, sir, Alex said, about to leave. Wait, I called out. I hesitated, then asked the question that had been burning inside me. Alex, is there any way for me to see Lily? From a distance? Without her seeing me, without alerting the Coles. Just for a moment, Alex looked at Arthur. Arthur considered it, then nodded. It can be arranged, but it must be absolutely safe. No mistakes. Thank you, Uncle Arthur. Thank you, Alex, I said quickly, a wave of painful anticipation washing over me. Alex was incredibly efficient. The very next afternoon, it was arranged. I was in an inconspicuous black sedan, with Alex himself driving. We parked near Sunshine Academy. The car was positioned in a discreet but clear vantage point. It was time for school to let out. Parents started arriving. My heart was pounding, my eyes fixed on the preschool entrance. Finally, I saw Karen Cole. She was wearing a trendy floral dress and carrying an expensive-looking handbag, laughing and chatting with another grandmother. I had never seen her smile at me like that in the 3 years I lived with them. A moment later, a teacher led a line of children out. I saw her immediately. My Lily. She was taller and thinner. She wore a yellow t-shirt and overalls, with a little backpack on. She was walking quietly at the end of the line, not skipping or searching for her guardian like the other kids. She was just staring at her own feet. Karen saw her, and the smile on her face faded slightly. She walked over, casually took Lily's hand, nodded at the teacher, and turned to leave. Lily stumbled a bit as she was pulled along. Her little face was blank. She didn't call out Grandma, she just followed silently. Tears instantly flooded my eyes. I clapped my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. My Lily, my baby. She looked so lonely, so timid. What kind of life had she been living in that house for the past 3 years? Kevin, Karen, how could you? How dare you do this to my child? Alex silently handed me a tissue. He said nothing. The car pulled away silently. I leaned back against the seat, letting the tears flow freely. My heart ached so much it felt like it was splitting in two, but at the same time, a colder, more resolute anger was building in my soul. I couldn't wait any longer. Asterisk Kevin, your good days are over. Asterisk, back at the mansion, I went straight to Arthur. Uncle Arthur, I said, my voice hoarse from crying but my eyes burning with a new fire. I want to start. As soon as possible. Now. Arthur looked at my red-rimmed eyes and my clenched fists. He understood my resolve. Miss Pierce has everything nearly ready. Tomorrow, she will formally file the motion to vacate the divorce decree and submit the preliminary criminal complaints to the district attorney's office. At the same time, the first wave of information we've prepared will be released through the proper channels. He looked at me and said slowly, Child, the storm is coming. I wiped away the last of my tears and stood up straight. I'm ready. This was a war I had to win. For myself, and more importantly, for Lily. The wind rises from the slightest of movements. The first to feel the chill was Kevin Cole. It was a perfectly ordinary Wednesday morning. Kevin sat in his spacious vice president's office at Cole Construction, leaning back in an expensive ergonomic chair, smugly reviewing a newly signed contract. Sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, glinting off the Omega watch on his wrist. 3 years. From a man living in constant fear to his current life, a beautiful home, a gorgeous wife, a successful business, he felt like he was on top of the world. Eva, that stupid woman. He had almost forgotten her. 3 years in prison in exchange for everything he had now? it was more than worth it. By the time she got out, she'd be a forgotten relic. What could she possibly do? A divorce decree had severed all ties. As for their daughter, Lily, she was with her own father, with a new mother and grandmother who doted on her. It was far better than being with a mother who was an ex-con. He took a satisfying sip of the fresh coffee his assistant had just brought him and started planning where to take Jessica for dinner. She was getting picky with her pregnancy cravings, but he could afford it now. Just then, his office door was thrown open. His assistant, a young man named Mark, rushed in, his face pale, forgetting to even knock. "Mr. Cole." It's bad," Kevin frowned, annoyed. "What's the panic? Is the sky falling?" He detested it when his staff acted so spineless. "No, sir. It's—" Mark gasped for breath, shoving his tablet in front of Kevin's face. "Look! You have to see this!" The tablet displayed the homepage of CityBeat, a popular and influential local news forum. A headline, in bold red letters, was seared across the top, burning into Kevin's vision. Asterisk, asterisk. The ultimate betrayal. Husband lets wife take prison fall, then sells home to marry mistress. Young daughter's welfare in question. Asterisk, asterisk. The author, claiming to be an insider, wrote a detailed and damning account. While names were partially redacted, the details were so specific it was obvious who it was about. The story told of a Mr. C, who embezzled company funds 3 years ago. When he was about to be caught, he begged his wife, Miss T, to take the blame, promising to care for their family and wait for her. Miss T, to protect her family, accepted the unjust prison sentence. However, shortly after his wife's incarceration, Mr. C sold their shared home, cut off all contact, and illegally obtained a divorce. To add insult to injury, he used the money to buy a luxury home, marry his former colleague and mistress, Miss R, and start a new company, living a life of ease. Meanwhile, their young daughter was living in this toxic environment. The post was filled with images, blurry but recognizable screenshots of property records pointing to lakeside estates, photos of Kevin and Jessica together with their faces blurred, and even a long-distance shot of Lily walking alone outside her preschool. Her head down, with a caption suggesting she was lonely and neglected. The post had been up for less than 2 hours and already had over 1,000 comments. The outrage was palpable. Asterisk. My God. Can people really be this shameless? Make your wife go to jail for you? Is he even human? Asterisk. Asterisk. Use her and then throw her away. And take the kid too. This guy is the king of scumbags. And the mistress is no better. Asterisk. Asterisk. Am I the only one who feels terrible for the wife and the poor kid? Find this guy. Expose him. Ruin him. Asterisk. Asterisk. Calling the DA's office. Isn't this perjury and conspiracy? Someone needs to investigate. Asterisk. Kevin stared at the scathing words and the constantly refreshing stream of vitriol. His face turned ashen. A cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His hand, holding the mouse, started to shake uncontrollably. He knocked over his coffee cup, the dark liquid spilling onto his expensive trousers. But he didn't even notice. Who posted this? Who did this? He yelled, jumping to his feet, his voice distorted with fear and rage. He snatched the tablet and scrolled down, his fingers trembling. The comments were already starting to piece it together. With keywords like Kevin Cole, Cole Construction, and Lakeside Estates appearing. Someone had even posted a screenshot of Cole Construction's business registration, with Kevin's name listed as a primary shareholder. Find out who did this. Get the forum moderators on the phone. I want this post taken down, now! Kevin roared at his assistant, his composure completely gone. I already tried, sir, Mark stammered. The moderator said the post involves public interest and potential criminal activity, so they can't take it down without an investigation. Investigation, my ass. This is slander. Libel! Kevin was shaking with fury. "Call the police! I want to press charges!" As he said it, the phone on his desk rang, the shrill sound making him jump. He snatched it up. It was the receptionist, her voice panicked. "Mr. Cole, there are reporters downstairs. A lot of them. They want to ask you about the story online. Security can't hold them back." Kevin's mind went blank. The world started to spin. Asterisk. Reporters? How did they get here so fast? Asterisk. Before he could react, his cell phone began to vibrate violently. A blocked number. He declined it. A second one came through. Then, a third. His social media and messaging apps exploded. Friends, family, business partners, even old classmates were calling or texting. Their tones ranging from confused to accusatory. It was over. Kevin's legs gave out, and he collapsed back into his chair, his face ashen. The successful image he had carefully crafted for 3 years, his fledgling business, his seemingly perfect new life with Jessica in a single morning, it had all been torn to shreds by an invisible hand. And this was only the beginning. At almost the exact same time, Jessica Reed was enjoying her life as a pampered, expectant mother in their spacious Lakeside Estates home. She was lying on their imported leather sofa with a face mask on, browsing for a new designer handbag on her phone. Her mother-in-law, Karen, was in the kitchen, gossiping on a video call with a friend, bragging about how successful her son was, how dutiful Jessica was, and how grand their new house was. Her sister-in-law, Brenda, was in her room, trying on a new dress and taking selfies for social media. It was a picture of domestic bliss, until Jessica's phone rang incessantly. It was one of her best friends, her voice frantic. "Jess, you need to look at the City Beat forum, right now! There's a post. I think it's about you and Kevin. Oh my God, what is going on?" Confused, Jessica clicked the link her friend sent. The moment she saw it, the mask on her face cracked. A piercing scream echoed through the house. Karen and Brenda rushed out. "Jessica, what is it? Is it the baby?" Karen asked, showing a flicker of concern. But Jessica was pointing at her phone, trembling, unable to form a coherent sentence. "Mom, Brenda, look at this. It's about Kevin and his ex-wife. It's all over the internet. They're calling us names." Karen and Brenda leaned in to look. Their faces went pale. Karen wasn't a strong reader, but she understood words like took the fall, threw away wife, and mistress. She panicked. Who? Who would do something so wicked? These are all lies. My son is not that kind of person. Brenda, however, was reading more closely, and her heart sank. Many of the details were correct: the timing of the house sale, the location of the new one, even a blurry picture of her carrying one of her new handbags into the community. This wasn't just a random attack. The person who wrote this knew things, and had likely been watching them. "Call Kevin! Call him now!" Brenda shrieked. When they got through to Kevin, all they could hear was chaos and his panicked, incoherent shouting. "Don't ask me. I don't know. It has to be her. That bitch Eva. She's out. She actually did this. Asterisk Eva is out. Asterisk." The news hit the 3 women like a bolt of lightning. The woman they thought would rot in prison, or at least emerge a broken shell, was out. And her first move was this devastating. How does she know all this? How dare she post it online? Jessica's voice trembled as she instinctively clutched her pregnant belly. She had always known about Kevin's ex-wife, but she never saw it as a problem. The winner takes all, but now she was being publicly branded as a home wrecker. She was terrified and furious. "What's there to be afraid of?" Karen said, trying to sound brave, though she was panicking inside. "She just got out of prison. She has no money, no power. What can she do? Everything online is fake. We'll sue her for defamation." Brenda chimed in, but with less conviction. Sue her for what? A lot of what they're saying is true. At the very least, they both knew the part about Kevin making Eva take the fall was the absolute truth. The house was in chaos when the doorbell rang. Through the peephole, they saw several people with cameras and microphones. "Is Mr. Kevin Cole home? We're from Channel 5 News. We'd like to ask you about the allegations circulating online regarding you and your ex-wife. Miss Reed, do you have any comment on the accusations? Is it true that you benefited from his ex-wife's imprisonment?" The aggressive questions came through the door, and Karen nearly fainted. Jessica's face was white as a sheet. Brenda was frozen in fear. "Go away! All of you! I'm calling the police!" Brenda yelled through the door, her voice a mix of bravado and terror. The reporters outside only got more excited, pounding on the door more insistently. Eventually, community security arrived and dispersed them, but a few lingered at the end of the street, waiting. Kevin's situation was even worse. He was trapped in his office, afraid to go downstairs. Reporters had surrounded the building. His clients were calling, their tones demanding and unfriendly. Some had already put their partnerships on hold. His employees were whispering, their eyes filled with suspicion and contempt. He tried to call his contacts in the media to kill the story, but they all gave him the runaround, saying the story was too big, too hot to touch. That's when he realized, with dawning horror, that the force behind this was far more powerful than he could have ever imagined. He thought of Eva, the quiet, gentle, almost weak woman he remembered. How could she possibly have this kind of power? Did she meet someone? Impossible. She just got out of prison. As his mind reeled on the verge of collapse, more bad news arrived. Mark, his assistant, burst in, his face devoid of color. "Mr. Cole, a courier just delivered this. It's a summons from the court and a notice from the district attorney's office." Kevin snatched the envelope. Inside were 2 official documents with bright red seals. One was a summons to appear in civil court. The plaintiff, Eva Thompson, the cause of action, a petition to vacate the divorce decree. The other was a notice from the DA's office, requesting his presence for questioning regarding an investigation into perjury and conspiracy to defraud. The few thin sheets of paper felt heavier than lead. They crushed the air from his lungs. The world went dark. A metallic taste filled his mouth. Asterisk Eva. She actually sued him. She's accusing him of a felony. Asterisk. Where did she get the money for a lawyer? Where did she get the nerve? Where did she get the evidence? "Mr. Cole!" "Sir, are you okay?" Mark asked, rushing to steady him. Kevin shoved him away and stumbled back into his chair, his chest heaving, his face drained of all color. It was over. It was all over. The online exposé was just the appetizer. These legal documents were the main course. No. He couldn't just give up. He frantically grabbed his phone, his fingers shaking as he scrolled through his contacts. He needed a lawyer. The best lawyer. He still had money. He still had connections. He couldn't lose. If he lost, he would lose everything. But a series of calls to his usual lawyers yielded nothing. As soon as they heard his name, they either hung up or made excuses about being too busy. Only one, a less scrupulous lawyer he'd used in the past, gave him a cryptic warning. "Kevin, this thing you're in, it's big. There's someone powerful behind it. You should think long and hard about who you might have pissed off. Or maybe you should think about settling." Asterisk. Pissed off someone powerful? Asterisk. Who could he have pissed off? Eva? She was a nobody. Kevin paced his office like a caged animal, a toxic cocktail of anger, fear, and disbelief coursing through him. He looked out the window at the reporters still camped out below, at the computer screen with the article that had now been shared tens of thousands of times, and at the 2 cold, official documents in his hand. He knew that his comfortable, self-assured life of the past 3 years had come to a definitive end. The storm that he himself had created 3 years ago had finally, violently, broken over his head. And he, along with the family he had built on a foundation of lies and betrayal, was standing directly in its path, with nowhere to hide. Meanwhile, in the quiet study of the Vance mansion, I had just finished listening to Miss Pierce's report. Miss Thompson, the court has accepted our petition. The summons should have been delivered to Mr. Cole by now. The DA's office is also taking our criminal complaint very seriously. They've officially opened an investigation and issued a notice for questioning. On the media front, the initial wave has been highly effective. Kevin Cole and his company's reputation are in tatters. His business partners are wavering, and his employees are in a state of panic. Miss, Pierce stated, her tone as calm and professional as ever. According to our monitoring, he is desperately trying to find legal representation, but so far, no reputable firm will touch his case. The so-called connections he built have proven worthless under real pressure. I nodded, looking out at the bright sunshine, but my heart was cold and clear. This was only the beginning. Miss Pierce, I said softly, my voice devoid of any vengeful glee, only a cold, sharp focus. I don't just want his reputation and his company ruined. I want him to lose every cent of his ill-gotten gains. I want him to pay, legally, for his crimes. I turned and looked her directly in the eye. And most importantly, I want my daughter back. Cleanly and completely. Miss Pierce met my gaze and nodded. Understood. The materials for the custody suit are nearly complete. The evidence we've gathered, including his criminal activity, his moral bankruptcy, the long-term emotional abuse inflicted by his mother and sister, and Jessica Reed's role as a third party in the marriage all create a very strong case in your favor. Combined with your natural rights as the biological mother and the stable home and financial security provided by Mr. Vance, our chances of success are very high. However, Miss Pierce cautioned, Kevin will likely try to use Lily as a weapon. He might coach the child to say she doesn't want to live with you, or create a false narrative that you are an unfit mother. For example, by emphasizing your prison record. We need to be prepared for that. I clenched my fists. Asterisk Kevin. If he dares to use Lily, I will never, ever forgive him. Asterisk. Also, Miss Pierce added, Mr. Vance wanted me to remind you that a cornered animal can be dangerous. Kevin may resort to extreme or underhanded tactics. Please be careful and avoid going out alone for the time being. I know, I nodded. Arthur had already arranged for Alex to have people watching over me. I was well aware of the risks. After Miss Pierce left, I stood by the window. The garden was in full bloom, a vibrant picture of life. Asterisk. Kevin, are you feeling the desperation yet? This is just the interest. The real judgment is yet to come. Asterisk. Asterisk my Lily. Mama is coming to get you soon. Just wait for Mama. Asterisk. The online firestorm continued to rage, growing larger and more intense with each passing day. The original City Beat post was picked up by multiple local news outlets and social media influencers, with headlines growing more sensational. Asterisk, asterisk, modern-day Judas. The man who sent his wife to prison. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Cole Construction was its foundation, built on an ex-wife's blood, sweat, and tears. Asterisk, asterisk. 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 The ultimate gaslighter. How Kevin Cole manipulated his way to the top. Asterisk. Asterisk. Kevin's phone became a hotline for hate. Strangers, reporters, business associates, and even distant relatives he'd once borrowed money from called to curse him out or demand explanations. He had to turn off his main phone, relying on a secret burner. Reporters laid siege to the Cole Construction office for 2 straight days. Business ground to a halt. Key clients formally paused their contracts. Suppliers called, worried about the company's stability, hinting they might have to demand payment up front. But the most fatal blow was internal. The office was rife with gossip. Employees looked at him with a mixture of disgust and contempt. Within a few days, 3 key employees resigned, including a technical manager who held relationships with many of their biggest clients. Mr. Cole, Mr. Henderson said he has a family emergency and can't work here anymore. His assistant, Mark, reported, his head bowed low. Get out! Get them all out! Kevin screamed, hurling a crystal ashtray against the wall. It shattered on the expensive Persian rug. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair a mess. The bespoke suit he wore was wrinkled and stained. He looked nothing like the suave, successful man he had been just a week ago. He hid at home, which had become a gilded cage. Reporters were still staked out downstairs. Neighbors pointed and whispered. His mother, Karen, was too afraid to go to her usual grocery store, terrified of being recognized. Jessica, using her pregnancy as an excuse, spent her days locked in her room, crying and blaming Kevin for dragging her into this mess and ruining her reputation. Brenda, furious and scared, tried to argue with people online, only to have her identity exposed, which led to a fresh wave of mockery. She was now too terrified to go online at all. The house was suffocating under a cloud of misery and recrimination, but Kevin was not one to give up. After the initial panic subsided, the viciousness of a cornered man took over. He couldn't let it end like this. He still had money, and one last, shady connection. Through an underground fixer, he got in touch with a lawyer notorious for taking on difficult cases for an exorbitant fee. His name was Mark Slater. Slater was a short, overweight man with beady eyes that screamed cunning and ruthlessness. After listening to Kevin's rambling, self-serving version of events in which Eva had times willingly, times taken the fall, their divorce was due to a times natural times breakdown of the marriage, and the internet was full of times. Lies times. Slater stroked his chin, a sly glint in his eye. Mr. Cole, this is a messy situation. A very messy one, Slater said, smacking his lips. Public opinion is against you, and the legal proceedings have started. Your opponent seems very well prepared. There's someone powerful behind her. Money is not an object, Mr. Slater. Just make this go away, Kevin pleaded, grabbing onto him like a drowning man. Making it go away will be difficult, Slater said, shaking his head. But not impossible. Everything is negotiable. What do we do? Tell me. First, the PR war. We can't just take the hits. We have to hit back, Slater said, his voice low. She says you made her take the fall. Do you have proof? She says you coerced her. Is there a recording? No? Good. Then we can say it was her idea. A noble sacrifice for the family. As for the embezzlement, we can muddy the waters, make the accounting look even more complicated. The divorce? You had irreconcilable differences. You were separated. The paperwork might have a few minor flaws, but the intent was clear. The key is to reframe you as the victim. The victim? Me? Kevin was stunned. Exactly, Slater said, slapping his thigh. Think about it. Your ex-wife gets out of prison. A bitter, broke woman. She's jealous of your new, happy life, so she concocts this story to extort you, to ruin you. You are the one being harassed, slandered, and maliciously sued. Your new wife, Jessica, isn't a mistress. She's the woman who saved you from a toxic marriage, who gave you love when you were at your lowest. You're a tragic couple, persecuted by a vindictive ex. Kevin listened, dumbfounded. Could they really twist it like that? Would anyone believe it? It doesn't matter if everyone believes it. What matters is creating an alternative narrative, confusing the issue, Slater said with a sinister grin. I know some people in online marketing. They're experts at creating viral content. We can plant a few stories from anonymous sources. Say your ex-wife was unfaithful in prison. Say she only married you for your money in the first place, and she was the one who took the money and tried to frame you. We can even hint that she has a new sugar daddy who's funding this whole thing to try and take over your company. Mix truth with lies. As long as it sounds plausible, you'll sway some people. Once public opinion is divided, you'll have breathing room. Kevin's eyes lit up. Yes, that's a great idea. Do it. Whatever it costs. Second, the legal front, Slater continued. Vacating the divorce will be tough, but we can delay. File motions to postpone, challenge jurisdiction, anything to slow the process down. The criminal complaint is the real danger. You have to go in for questioning, but we'll control what you say. What do I say? You stick to one story. You had no idea why she confessed. Maybe she felt guilty. Maybe she wanted to do something for the family. The evidence of embezzlement? She was the one who signed the papers and confessed. You were just a concerned husband and colleague providing the information you knew. The divorce? You were separated. You couldn't reach her. You assumed she had moved on. So you filed. The key is to distance yourself from everything. Push all the responsibility onto Eva's willingness and the natural end of your marriage. The DA wants evidence? Let them get it from her. The court convicted her, not you. Kevin nodded vigorously, feeling a sense of control returning. And finally, Slater leaned in closer, his voice a conspiratorial whisper. The most important weapon you have. The child. Kevin's heart froze. Your daughter, Slater said, a cruel light in his eyes. She's your shield, and your opponent's greatest weakness. I've handled custody cases. A 4-year-old's wishes are easily influenced. Whoever gives her candy, whoever spends time with her, that's who she'll cling to. Your job now is to be the world's best dad. At the same time, he made a subtle gesture. You need to make her afraid of her mother, or at least dislike her. Casually mention that mommy made a big mistake and went away because she didn't want you. Or that mommy is a bad person now, and she's trying to take you away from daddy and our happy home. Kids are suggestible. When you get to court, and the judge asks the little girl who she wants to live with, and she cries and says she's scared of her mommy, what do you think the judge will do? Kevin's breath caught in his throat. Asterisk. Use Lily. Asterisk. He felt a flicker of hesitation, but it was quickly extinguished by his overwhelming instinct for self-preservation. Lily was his daughter. She belonged with him. What right did Eva, an ex-con, have to fight him for her? I understand, Kevin said, a dark fire rekindling in his eyes. I know what to do. One more thing, Slater added. Find out where your ex-wife is staying, who she's with. We need to know. If you can get some compromising photos her with some rich guy, going into a fancy hotel even better. It would perfectly support our narrative that she's a kept woman out for revenge. This is a mudslinging contest. We have to be prepared to sling more mud. Kevin nodded, his mind already racing. He immediately transferred a large sum of money to Slater and promised a hefty bonus upon success. Armed with Slater's playbook, Kevin felt revitalized. He pulled himself together, gave a rousing speech to his remaining employees about overcoming temporary difficulties, and stabilized what was left of his company. Then, he put the plan into motion. Online, a series of articles and posts defending Kevin began to appear. The angles were cunning, the language emotional. Asterisk. A father's nightmare. The confession of a man being extorted by his ex-wife. Asterisk. Asterisk. The untold story. What really happened behind the noble sacrifice? Asterisk. Asterisk. Who is the real victim? How public opinion is being weaponized to destroy a family? Asterisk. These pieces painted Kevin as a tragic hero, deceived by a manipulative ex-wife and now being persecuted by her. Jessica was portrayed as a loving woman who had saved him from despair. Eva, meanwhile, was depicted as greedy, vicious, and mentally unstable, a woman acting on the orders of a mysterious benefactor to destroy him. Paid trolls and bots flooded social media, trying to shift the narrative. While most people saw through it, a vocal minority began to express doubt, arguing to wait for all the facts. Kevin saw this and felt a sliver of relief. Slater was right. All he needed was to muddy the waters. Next, his behavior toward Lily changed dramatically. Before, he had been a distant, preoccupied father. Now, he started spending all his free time with her. He bought her expensive toys, princess dresses, and took her to fancy restaurants. He even started reading her bedtime stories. Lily, Daddy loves you, right? He would ask, his voice dripping with affection. Lily, clutching a new doll. would nod shyly. Yes. Who do you love more, Daddy or Mommy? Kevin would press. Lily would look up, her big, clear eyes filled with confusion. Asterisk, Mommy. Asterisk. She hadn't seen her in so long. Her grandma and aunt sometimes said, "Your mommy doesn't want you. She's a bad person." Her dad had never mentioned her. Now, he was asking, "Daddy," she would whisper, a hint of wanting to please him in her voice. Kevin would smile, satisfied. "That's my girl. Remember, Daddy is the person who loves you most in the world. Mommy, she made a big mistake and went away. She didn't want you. Now she's back. And she might try to take you away from me. To break up our family. You don't want to be taken away from Daddy, do you?" The words taken away and break up scared Lily. She would cling to his shirt and nod. Kevin, Karen, and Jessica all reinforced this narrative. Karen was especially vicious. "Lily, that mother of yours is a wicked woman. She's the one who almost ruined our family. Now she sees your dad is successful and she's come back to get a piece of it. You can't trust her." For a 4-year-old, living in a constant stream of such suggestions, the faint, warm memories of her mother were slowly replaced by fear and rejection. Lily grew even quieter. The mention of the word Mommy would make her flinch. Kevin also hired a private investigator to find me and dig up dirt. But the Vance estate was a fortress, and Alex had already taken precautions. The investigator was only able to get a few long-distance blurry shots of me in the garden or getting into one of the Vance family cars. He did, however, find out who Arthur Vance was, and was too terrified to dig any deeper. He vaguely reported back to Kevin that I seemed to be involved with a very powerful old man. Asterisk powerful? Asterisk Kevin was furious and confused. How could Eva have landed on her feet like that? He became even more convinced that this was a premeditated attack. The day of his questioning at the DA's office arrived. With Slater by his side, Kevin put on a brave face. He stuck to the script, painting himself as an innocent bystander, pushing all blame onto Eva's willingness and their irreconcilable differences. When pressed for details, he claimed the events were too long ago and he couldn't remember clearly. The prosecutor was sharp, and several times Kevin nearly cracked under the pressure, saved only by Slater's clever interruptions. He left the DA's office drenched in a cold sweat. "What do you think? Did they buy it?" he asked Slater desperately. Slater wiped his own brow, his expression grim. "We held them off for now. But they're not stupid. They're going to verify everything. We need to move fast and clean up any loose ends from back then. That detective, that CFO from your old company, we need to make sure their mouths stay shut. Pay them whatever it takes." Kevin's heart sank. He had paid them off once, but with this much heat, loyalties were fickle. "I'll arrange it," he said. He knew this was a matter of survival. Back at the Vance mansion, Alex reported all of Kevin's countermoves to me and Arthur. He's hired a lawyer named Mark Slater, a real bottom feeder. The online narrative has seen some pushback, but it's minor. The negative sentiment is still overwhelming. We've noted a significant change in his behavior towards his daughter, Lily. And he hired a PI to investigate you, Miss Thompson. But we've handled it. Arthur snorted. The desperate struggles of a cornered rat. He looked at me. Child. He started playing the sympathy card with Lily, trying to brainwash her. This is bad for our custody case. My heart tightened. Asterisk, Lily. Asterisk. That monster was actually using our daughter. Uncle Arthur. What's the status with Miss Pierce? When can we file for custody? I asked urgently. The paperwork is ready. We can file at any time, Arthur said. But we need more concrete evidence that his actions are causing demonstrable harm to the child. Right now, proving psychological manipulation is difficult. I bit my lip. An idea began to form. Uncle Arthur, I want to meet with him. With Kevin. Both Arthur and Alex looked at me. What are you planning? A negotiation? I said calmly, though my heart was racing. I'll use the possibility of dropping some of the charges or being lenient on the financial settlement as bait. My real goal is to get him to agree to let me see Lily, maybe even let her stay with me for a short time. If he refuses, it shows he has something to hide. If he agrees, we can record the entire conversation. Arthur considered it. It's risky. He's like a rabid dog right now. And his lawyer is cunning. They might see through it and set a trap for you. I know it's risky, I said, my back straight. But I have to do something for Lily. I can't just stand by while he poisons her mind. We can choose the location, have security. As for that lawyer, Alex, is there any way to make Mr. Slater unavailable for a little while? Maybe he needs to cooperate with an investigation of his own? A flicker of understanding crossed Alex's face. He looked at Arthur. Arthur tapped his fingers on his armchair for a moment, then nodded. It can be arranged. The IRS or the state bar can find a reason to have a long chat with him. That should keep him busy for a day or two. He looked at me again, his expression serious. Child, are you sure about this? Once you take this step, there's no turning back. You and Kevin will be face to face. I met his gaze without a shred of hesitation. I passed the point of no return a long time ago. Uncle Arthur, from the moment I walked into that prison, from the moment he left me that divorce decree, it was always going to be him or me. My voice was soft, but it carried the weight of a final, unbreakable decision. For Lily, I'll take any risk. Arthur looked at me for a long, hard moment, then finally nodded. All right. Alex, make the arrangements. The location must be completely secure. Eva's safety is the top priority. And call Miss Pierce. Have her prepare the negotiation points and legal contingencies. Yes, sir, Alex said, and left. Child, Arthur said after he was gone. Remember, no matter what he says or does, do not let him provoke you. Do not lose your cool. Your goal is Lily, and getting back what is yours. Your emotions are his best weapon. I understand, I said, nodding firmly. Outside, the sky was darkening. Storm clouds were gathering on the horizon. Asterisk, Kevin, did you think your little counterattack would scare me? You're wrong. A person who has already climbed out of hell has nothing left to fear. Asterisk, this time, I would face you myself. For my daughter. And everything you inflicted on me, I will return to you in person. The meeting was set at the Cypress Club, a quiet, high-security private club in the city center. It was owned by a friend of Arthur's, ensuring absolute privacy and safety. Alex had cleared out the entire top floor and positioned security personnel both inside and out. I arrived 30 minutes early, sitting in a private room with a view of the glittering city skyline. The city lights felt a world away. My palms were sweating. Not from fear, but from a tense mix of hatred, anticipation, and the forced calm I had to maintain. Arthur wasn't there, but Miss Pierce was with me. She sat across from me, her laptop and a discreet recording device on the table. Miss Thompson, remember our strategy, she whispered. We offer to drop any claims against Jessica Reed and to be lenient on the property settlement. Our core demand is the right to see Lily and to get temporary custody. Listen to any counteroffers he makes, but do not commit to anything. Our bottom line is the child's well-being and your ultimate custody. Watch his micro-expressions. Everything he says can be used later. I nodded, taking a deep breath to slow my racing heart. At the appointed time, footsteps approached. Alex opened the door, followed by Kevin and the pudgy lawyer, Mark Slater. Slater looked out of sorts, his face pale and anxious. Earlier that afternoon, he had been invited by the IRS to clarify some old tax filings. Though he was out for now, the experience had clearly shaken him. His eyes darted around the room, full of suspicion. Kevin's gaze locked onto me. He had changed in 3 years. He still wore expensive clothes, but the smug confidence was gone, replaced by a haggard anxiety. He had dark circles under his eyes, and his skin looked sallow even in the club's soft lighting. His expression was a complex mix of anger, hatred, and disbelief. He had probably imagined me emerging from prison as a broken, destitute woman, begging him for scraps. This version of me, well-dressed, calm, sitting in an exclusive club with a high-powered lawyer, was not what he expected. "Eva," he said, his voice a low growl. "What the hell do you want?" I didn't answer immediately. Just looked at him, the man I had once loved so much I had sacrificed everything for him. Now, he was a repulsive stranger. "Please, have a seat, Mr. Cole," Miss Pierce said coolly. Kevin and Slater sat down. Slater, trying to regain his composure, sized us up, his suspicion growing. "Kevin, let's cut to the chase," I began, my voice surprisingly steady. "Everything that's happening, the media, the lawsuits, it's not good for anyone. Especially not for Lily." At the mention of her name, Kevin flinched and sat up straighter. "Lily is my daughter. She has nothing to do with you. Genetically, she will always be my daughter," I said, staring him down. "And have you been a good father to her these past 3 years? Raising her in a home where her father is a criminal, her grandmother is cruel, and the entire atmosphere is built on a lie? Kevin, don't forget, you were the one who knelt and begged me, for Lily's future, to take the fall. Is this the future you promised her?" A muscle twitched in Kevin's jaw. I had hit a nerve. "Don't you dare act like you care," he spat. "Lily has the best of everything with me, the best clothes, the best school. What kind of future could she have with you? An ex-con. You'd be a disgrace to her. And whose fault is it that I'm an ex-con?" My voice turned to ice. "Do I need to remind you? Should I reenact the scene of you crying and begging? Should I tell the judge and the world how Kevin Cole meticulously forged evidence, possibly bribed officials, to send his own wife to prison while he lived a life of luxury? You're lying! That's slander!" Kevin shot up from his chair, pointing a trembling finger at me. "Where's your proof? You were the one who confessed. The court convicted you. It had nothing to do with me." Miss Pierce tapped the table lightly. "Mr. Cole, please control yourself. We are here to find a potential resolution, not to shout. If you are not here in good faith, we can conclude this meeting and proceed in court." Slater quickly pulled Kevin's sleeve. "Kevin, calm down. Sit." Kevin sat down heavily, his eyes still burning with rage. Slater forced a smile. "Miss Pierce, a pleasure. We are, of course, here in good faith. But Miss Thompson started off with accusations. That's not a very productive way to negotiate." Miss Pierce adjusted her glasses. "Our approach is dictated by your clients. Mr. Cole has been hostile from the moment he walked in. If we are to negotiate, let's have some sincerity. Perhaps you can start by telling us what your client's terms are." Kevin and Slater exchanged a look. Slater cleared his throat. "All right. First, all of this online slander must stop immediately. And Miss Thompson must issue a public apology, clarifying the misunderstandings and restoring my client's reputation." "Misunderstandings?" I scoffed. "The only misunderstanding is that the world doesn't yet know the full extent of your crimes. You want an apology? Fine. You go to the police. Confess to perjury and obstruction of justice, and apologize to society for being a monster. Then, I'll apologize." "You!" Kevin started to erupt again, but Slater held him back. "Second, all lawsuits and complaints against my client must be dropped. The divorce decree is legal and binding. Your marriage is over," Miss Pierce calmly replied. "Whether the decree is legal is for the court to decide. The criminal complaints are based on new evidence of a potential miscarriage of justice. That is a matter for the district attorney. It's not ours to simply drop. Third," Kevin cut in, his eyes locked on me. "Custody of Lily is non-negotiable. She stays with me. A convicted felon has no right to raise a child. No judge would ever grant you custody." Finally, the heart of the matter. My own heart was pounding, but I kept my face a mask of calm. Kevin, you keep saying this is for Lily's sake, I said, my voice softer now, deliberately weary. I served time. That is a stain on my record. I have nothing now. I can't compete with your big house and your company. But I am her mother. For 3 years, I thought about her every single day. I paused, watching him. A flicker of triumph crossed his face. He thought I was finally breaking. So, I'm not here today to try and rip her away from you, I continued, changing my tone. I just want to see her. 3 years. As a mother, I just want to see how much my daughter has grown, to know if she's okay. Is that too much to ask? Kevin was taken aback. This wasn't what he had expected. Slater frowned, and I pressed on, my voice now pleading. I know your new wife, Jessica, is pregnant. You're about to have a new baby. Lily isn't her biological child. It might be awkward for her in that house later on. If you're willing, I could take Lily to live with me for a while, just until your new baby is born and things settle down. Then we can discuss a more permanent arrangement. During that time, you wouldn't have to pay child support. I could even make some concessions on the property settlement. For example, the house in Lakeside Estates. I could agree to drop my claim on it. When I mentioned the house, I saw a flash of greed in Kevin's eyes. That house was now worth over $1 million. It was his most valuable asset. Slater immediately sensed the trap. Kevin, be careful, he whispered. But Kevin was tempted. In his mind, the house was probably more important than the child. If he could secure his property and temporarily get rid of Lily, especially with a new baby on the way, it seemed like a good deal. And Eva seemed to have finally accepted reality. You mean it? Kevin asked, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. We can sign a formal agreement, Miss Pierce interjected. If Mr. Cole agrees to allow Miss Thompson to see Lily and, under mutually agreed upon terms, allows Lily to live with Miss Thompson for a trial period, then in the subsequent property division lawsuit, Miss Thompson will agree to waive her primary claim to the Lakeside Estates property. Furthermore, if Miss Reed cooperates, Miss Thompson will consider dropping any personal claims against her. Her wording was precise, leaving plenty of legal wiggle room. Kevin hesitated, looking at Slater. The lawyer was deep in thought. Legally, signing such an agreement would almost certainly secure the house. It would also ease some of public pressure. They could spin it as a mutual settlement. As for the child, it was only temporary. He could always find a way to get her back, or continue to control the situation. And he wanted to see what my game was. Who was really behind me? A meeting can be arranged, Slater finally said, speaking for Kevin. But it must be under our supervision, at a time and place of our choosing, the trial period of living together. That requires further consideration. We need to ensure the child's well-being. We can discuss the terms, Miss Pierce said. We also have our conditions. For example, during any time she spends with her mother, Mr. Cole and his family are not to interfere or feed the child false information. We will require regular updates on her condition. The negotiation descended into a tense back and forth over details. Kevin and Slater tried to impose as many restrictions as possible, while I insisted on having a meaningful, uninterrupted period of time with Lily. At one point, Kevin lost his temper. Eva, I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to use Lily to blackmail me. It won't work. You're just jealous of my life with Jessica. You deserve to go to prison. And you know what? Lily doesn't even remember you. She's afraid of you. She told me she doesn't want a mommy. That last sentence was a poisoned dagger straight to my heart. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palms, just to maintain my composure. Asterisk, Lily is afraid of me? She doesn't want me? Asterisk, Kevin, what have you done to my daughter? Throughout it all, Miss Pierce remained the calm center of the storm, expertly steering the conversation back to the legal framework and subtly inserting clauses that favored our position. After nearly 2 hours, we reached a tense preliminary agreement. Kevin would allow me to meet Lily this coming Saturday, for 2 hours, at a children's play place of his choosing, both lawyers and a child psychologist. A condition I insisted on, which Kevin reluctantly accepted, would be present. If the first meeting went well and the child showed no extreme aversion, we would then negotiate a potential short-term trial period of her living with me. In exchange, I would consider waiving my primary claim on the house, with all details to be formalized in a separate, legally binding contract. I would also temporarily suspend any action against Jessica Reed. It was a small step, but it was a step. I was going to see my daughter. As they got up to leave, Kevin paused at the door. He turned back, his eyes cold, and said in a low voice only I could hear, "Don't get too excited, Eva. Lily is my daughter. You'll never take her from me. I sent you to prison once. I can make your life a living hell again. Take some money and disappear. It's your last chance. Or what?" I stood up and met his threatening gaze, even taking a step closer. My voice was like ice. "Kevin, do you still think I'm the same fool you manipulated 3 years ago? Every word you just said, every threat, has been recorded. Go ahead and try. Let's see if you can still play God with my life." My expression must have been terrifying, because he actually took a step back. A flicker of shock and fear on his face. He had never seen me like this. "We'll see," he snarled, then turned and left. Slater gave me one last, long look before following him out. The room was quiet. The tension left my body in a rush, and I swayed, catching myself on the table. "Miss Thompson, are you all right?" Miss Pierce asked. "I'm fine," I said, shaking my head. "The recording is perfect," she said, "especially his final threat." And our lip-reading expert caught some of his whispered exchanges with Slater. Very useful. Alex came in. "Miss Thompson, the car is ready." In the car, watching the city lights streak by, my mind was a whirlwind. The confrontation had been draining, but I felt a new sense of power. I had faced him, the man I hated more than anyone, and he was scared. He was trying to hide his fear behind threats, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Asterisk, Lily, Mama is finally going to see you. No matter what lies he's told you, Mama will win you back with all the love in the world. Just wait for me, baby. Asterisk. Saturday arrived, the sky a dull, oppressive gray. The air was heavy, mirroring the anxiety in my heart. The meeting spot was Rainbow Castle, a large indoor playground in an upscale mall. Kevin likely chose it because it was public, crowded, and easy for him to monitor. The playground was a kaleidoscope of bright colors, filled with the happy screams of children. The contrast with my own tense, heavy heart was brutal. Alex had already made arrangements. Our people, disguised as ordinary parents, were scattered throughout the area. Miss Pierce and the child psychologist, Dr. Allen, a kind, intelligent-looking woman, were with me. On Kevin's side, he brought Lily himself. Mark Slater was there, along with 2 burly men who stood at a distance, looking like bodyguards. I arrived early, standing in a quiet corner near the entrance, my heart pounding like a drum. 3 years, over 1,000 days of longing and agony. It all came down to this moment. I had dreamed of our reunion countless times, imagined Lily running into my arms, calling me Mama. But I knew that was a fantasy. After 3 years in Kevin's brainwashing, would she even remember me? Would she be afraid of me? The minutes ticked by like centuries. Finally, I saw him. Kevin, in casual clothes, his face tense. He was holding the hand of a little girl in a yellow sundress, her hair in 2 perfect pigtails. It was Lily. My breath caught in my throat. My eyes were locked on her. She was so much taller. Her features were familiar, yet she was a stranger. She kept her head down, her steps hesitant, showing none of the excitement other children had for the playground. Kevin saw me. A cold look passed over his face. He bent down and whispered something to Lily. She looked up, her gaze timidly drifting in my direction. The moment our eyes met, My heart was crushed. In her eyes, there was no joy of recognition, no love for a long-lost mother. There was only the blankness of a stranger, confusion, and a deep, unmistakable fear. She quickly looked away, her little hand tightening its grip on Kevin's pants. A smirk touched Kevin's lips. He led her toward me. "Lily, look," Kevin said, pausing as if choosing his words. "This is Miss Thompson. Asterisk Miss Thompson. Asterisk." The name was like an icicle to my heart. He wouldn't even let her call me an aunt. Lily glanced at me again, her body shrinking back, trying to hide behind Kevin. She mumbled a barely audible, "Hi, miss." That single word shattered the last of my illusions. The world went dark. I bit my lips so hard I tasted blood, just to keep from breaking down in front of her. Miss Pierce discreetly steadied my arm. "Mr. Cole, our agreed-upon time is 2 hours," Miss Pierce said, her calm voice breaking the suffocating silence. "Dr. Allen is a child psychologist. She will be present to ensure the meeting proceeds in a way that is beneficial for the child. We suggest Dr. Allen first speak with Lily to build rapport." Kevin frowned, but he glanced at the professional-looking Dr. Allen, then around at our people, and reluctantly agreed. "Fine, but I'm staying right here. Mr. Cole, to create a low-pressure environment, it would be best if you kept some distance," Dr. Allen said, her voice gentle but firm. "You can sit in the parents' lounge over there. We will be in your line of sight at all times." Kevin started to argue, but Slater whispered something to him. He finally let go of Lily's hand. "Lily, Daddy will be right over there. You go play with Dr. Allen for a little while." He deliberately avoided using my name. Lily twisted her little hands together, looking from Kevin to the strangers. Her lower lip began to tremble. Dr. Allen knelt down to her eye level, her smile warm and inviting. "Hi, Lily. My name is Dr. Allen. Look at all the fun things in Rainbow Castle. There's a ball pit, and slides, and a merry-go-round. Would you like to go see?" Her soft voice seemed to capture Lily's attention. Lily shyly looked inside, then back at the doctor. "Go on, Lily. Daddy's waiting," Kevin prompted. Only then did Lily reluctantly extend her tiny hand. Dr. Allen gently took it. She didn't lead her to me, but instead pointed at the colorful equipment, speaking to her in a low, soothing voice. Slowly guiding her inside, she gave me a look, signaling for me to follow at a distance. I trailed behind them, my eyes greedily drinking in the sight of my daughter's back, my heart breaking with every step. My child was so close, yet an ocean separated us. Inside, Dr. Allen found a quiet corner with soft building blocks. At first, Lily was stiff and silent. Dr. Allen was patient, slowly drawing her out with the game. I sat on a small bench nearby, my gaze never leaving her. Seeing her downcast face, the way she would sneak a quick, fearful glance at me, the way she played with an intense, joyless focus, my heart sank into a pit of despair and rage. Asterisk Kevin. "What have you done to my child?" Asterisk. After about half an hour, Lily seemed to relax a little. Dr. Allen saw her chance. She picked up a red block and turned to me with a smile. "Lily, look, I think Miss Thompson would like to build with us. Is that okay?" Lily's body went rigid again. She glanced at me, then looked down, her hands clutching a blue block, silent and still. My heart was in my throat. Dr. Allen gave me an encouraging look. I slowly got up, trying to make my movements as gentle as possible, and pasted on the most loving smile I could manage. I knelt down beside them. "Hi, Lily," I said, my voice a soft whisper. Can I build with you? We could build a big house together." Lily's head drooped even lower. Her little shoulders were trembling. I tentatively reached out to stroke her hair, just like I used to when she was a baby. But the moment my fingers brushed against her, she flinched violently, scrambling away from me and into Dr. Allen's arms. My hand froze in midair. My heart shattered. Tears I could no longer hold back streamed down my face. I quickly turned away, wiping them with the back of my hand, not wanting to scare her. "I'm sorry, Lily. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you," I choked out. From the safety of Dr. Allen's embrace, Lily peeked at me. Seeing my tears, she seemed confused. The fear in her eyes was mixed with a flicker of curiosity. She bit her lip and whispered to Dr. Allen, "Why? Why is she crying?" Dr. Allen held her close. "Because she likes you very much, Lily. And it makes her sad that you're a little scared of her." Lily fell silent again, just watching me cry. Just then, Kevin, who had been watching intently, saw his chance. A cruel, triumphant look crossed his face. He strode over. "I think that's enough time. Lily, let's go home." He reached for her. Lily, seeing him, scrambled out of Dr. Allen's lap and ran to him, hiding behind his legs, peeking out at me. "Mr. Cole, we still have over an hour," Miss Pierce said, stepping forward. "The kid's not feeling well. She wants to go home. Is that a problem?" Kevin snapped, scooping Lily into his arms. "Lily, tell Daddy, you want to go home, right?" Lily wrapped her arms tightly around his neck, burying her face in his shoulder, and gave a muffled, Kevin shot me a look of pure victory, as if to say, "See, this is your daughter, and she doesn't want you." I stood there, watching him carry her away, watching Lily's small, resistant form disappear. All the strength drained from my body. A cold, black despair washed over me. 3 years of separation, and our reunion was this. So close, yet worlds apart. My Lily didn't know me. She was afraid of me. "Miss Thompson?" Miss Pierce and Dr. Allen looked at me with concern. I wiped my tears. My body was still trembling, but a new light was kindling in my eyes. "No, I will not give up. Kevin. The more you try to stop me, the more you poison my daughter's mind, the more determined I am to get her back. What happened today only proves how toxic your family is for her. I'm fine," I said, my voice raspy but steady. "Dr. Allen, what is your professional opinion of what just happened?" Dr. Allen's expression was grave. "The child's fear and avoidance are extreme. This is not the natural shyness of a child separated from a parent. She displays clear anxiety and resistance to the topic of her mother. Combined with her generally subdued and insecure demeanor, I strongly suspect she has been subjected to continuous, negative psychological suggestion. This environment is severely detrimental to her development." Miss Pierce nodded. "Dr. Allen's expert assessment will be a critical piece of evidence in our custody case." I stared in the direction Kevin and Lily had gone, my hands slowly clenching into fists. At least now I had seen for myself what she was going through, and she had seen me. Even if it was just my tears, it had planted a seed. "Dr. Allen, if I get another chance, what should I do?" "If you get more time with her," the doctor advised, "do not rush. Do not force her to accept you. Start with simple companionship. Let her see that you are safe, gentle, and consistent. Read her stories. Play quiet games. Observe her interests. Building trust takes time, especially for a child who has been traumatized. The most important thing is to make her feel secure, to feel that she is loved unconditionally. Without pressure, I committed her words to memory. On the ride back, I was silent. The city lights were bright, but they couldn't penetrate the cold darkness in my heart. "Miss Thompson," Alex, who was driving, said suddenly, "Mr. Vance asked me to tell you that a temporary setback does not mean defeat. The more Kevin acts this way, the more it proves his guilt and the necessity of you winning custody." "Mr. Vance also said he will use all of his resources to ensure that next time you will get a longer, uninterrupted period with your daughter." A warmth spread through my chest. "Please thank him for me, Alex. And thank you." Back at the mansion, I went to the garden. The cool night air helped to clear my head. Today's meeting, as painful as it was, had ripped away any pretense of a civil resolution. I now saw the true brutality of the fight ahead. Kevin would not let go of Lily easily. Her fearful dependence on him was now his greatest leverage. Law, media, psychological warfare, I had to be smarter, sharper, and more relentless. I wasn't just fighting for a legal victory. I was fighting to rescue my daughter from a prison of lies, whatever the cost. Late that night, I stood on the balcony, looking at the distant city lights, replaying Lily's frightened, confused face in my mind. The pain was sharp, but my resolve was hardening into steel. Lily, don't be afraid. Mama will bring you home. No matter how distant you are now, my love will never change. Wait for me. Next time, I'll be a little bit closer, and the time after that, I will take you with me. The heartbreaking meeting with Lily was both a dagger in my heart and the catalyst that ignited my final, all-out assault. Grief and weakness were buried deep, replaced by a cold, ruthless clarity. If Kevin thought he could break me with my own child's fear, he was wrong. He had only shown me the depth of the damage he was inflicting, and in doing so, had sealed his own fate. The very next day, I met with Arthur and Miss Pierce. Uncle Arthur, Miss Pierce, I've changed my mind, I said, my voice calm but unyielding. Our previous strategy was too soft. A man like Kevin Cole only understands brute force. He dared to use Lily. He dared to threaten me. That means he still thinks he can control me like he did 3 years ago. Arthur sat behind his desk, watching me, his eyes sharp, a hint of approval in his gaze. Miss Pierce adjusted her glasses. Miss Thompson, you're suggesting a full-scale, multi-front offensive? No holds barred? Exactly, I said, each word deliberate. Legal, media, financial, his social and business connections, every pressure point we can find. We hit it. Hard. I want him gasping for air. I want him isolated, bankrupt, and broken. I want him on his knees, begging. A barely perceptible smile touched Arthur's lips. Be more specific. I turned to Miss Pierce. Legally, what else can we do? She thought for a moment. On the criminal front, the DA's investigation is proceeding. We recently acquired a recorded confession from a former accountant at Summit Trading, one who was bribed and threatened by Kevin. He confirms that Kevin ordered him to cook the books and frame you. This recording, combined with our other evidence, is enough to solidify the charges. We can petition the DA to expedite the case and to consider taking Kevin into custody to prevent him from tampering with witnesses. Do it, I said without hesitation. File for his immediate arrest. Let him see what it feels like to lose his freedom. On the civil side, Miss Pierce continued, in addition to vacating the divorce, we can immediately file for an asset freeze. All of his known assets, his shares in Cole Construction, the Lakeside Estates property. His bank accounts can be frozen to prevent him from hiding them. We can also file an additional lawsuit against his mother, Karen, and sister, Brenda, for intentional infliction of emotional distress and for their role in alienating Lily from you. This will further strengthen our custody case. File everything, I commanded, immediately. And the media, I said, turning to Arthur. The first article was good, but it's not enough. Kevin is trying to paint himself as a victim. It's time to show the world who the real monster is. We release everything. Arthur nodded to Alex, who stood by silently. Alex, compile all the evidence we have on Cole Construction's bid rigging, fraudulent invoicing, and tax evasion, and the details on his wife, Jessica's cousin at the IRS, the kickbacks, the money trail. Package it all and leak it anonymously to a few major, reputable investigative journalists. Make it look like they uncovered it themselves. Yes, sir, Alex said, a glint of steel in his eyes. And one more thing, I added. That lawyer he hired, Mark Slater. That recording of them plotting how to manipulate Lily, how to tamper with witnesses, release that too. I want everyone to hear the vile, disgusting things they're capable of. Also, Arthur mused, Kevin thinks he has connections in this city. Tip off the IRS, the Department of Labor, OSHA, the city building inspectors, every regulatory body that has jurisdiction over coal construction. Tell them to do their jobs, thoroughly. And a word to his business partners and the banks that hold his loans. In business, reputation is everything. Once that's gone, his company is finished. This coordinated assault would be a death blow. Legally, he would be fighting on two fronts. Publicly, he would be a pariah. Financially, his assets would be frozen and his business would collapse. As for Lily, my voice dropped, filled with unshakable resolve. File the custody motion immediately. At the same time, petition the court for an emergency temporary custody order based on the fact that he is under criminal investigation and his home is a toxic environment. I want her out of that house as soon as possible. Miss Pierce nodded. An emergency order is difficult to get, but given the evidence, especially his pending criminal charges and Dr. Allen's psychological evaluation of Lily, and with the stable environment and financial security you can now provide, we have a very strong chance. Then do it, Arthur said, his voice like the fall of a gavel. Mobilize all resources. I want to see Kevin Cole in a full-blown panic within a week, and on his knees within a month. The storm broke with a fury that shook the city. First, a second media tsunami hit. Several respected news outlets simultaneously published exposés. Asterisk, asterisk. The Philanthropist's Facade. Inside Coal Construction's Criminal Enterprise. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. IRS investigates local power couple for tax fraud and bribery. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. Exclusive. Leaked audio reveals Kevin Cole and lawyer plotting to manipulate 4-year-old daughter in custody battle. Asterisk, asterisk. This was no longer just a story of marital betrayal. This was hard evidence. Internal emails detailing bid rigging, falsified invoices, bank records showing illicit payments to Jessica's cousin, and worst of all, the crystal-clear audio of Slater coaching Kevin on how to turn Lily against me. The public reaction was explosive. The story went viral. The remaining trolls defending Kevin vanished. The coal construction website crashed. Business partners issued public statements severing all ties. The bank called in his loans. The legal hammer fell next. The court granted our motion to freeze his assets. That same afternoon, Kevin's bank accounts were locked. The Lakeside Estates home was slapped with a lien, and the company's funds were seized. Based on the new evidence, especially the accountant's confession, the DA's office concluded that Kevin was a flight risk and likely to tamper with witnesses. They approved the warrant for his arrest. Police cars, sirens screaming, pulled up to the house in Lakeside Estates. In front of all the shocked and disgusted neighbors, a stunned, disheveled Kevin Cole was put in handcuffs and taken away. His mother, Karen, fainted on the spot. Jessica, her hands on her pregnant belly, collapsed into hysterics. Brenda locked herself in her room, screaming. The day after his arrest, the family court issued its ruling. Given that the father was now incarcerated on felony charges and that the mother, Eva Thompson, could provide a stable home and had expert testimony on her side, the court granted an emergency order. For the duration of the legal proceedings, custody of Lily Cole was temporarily transferred to me. When I arrived at that house, accompanied by Miss Pierce and 2 sheriff's deputies, it was in a state of chaos. Karen was wailing in bed. Jessica sat on the sofa, her eyes swollen shut from crying. Brenda was nowhere to be seen. My eyes found her immediately. Curled up in a corner of the sofa, clutching a tattered stuffed rabbit, was a small, pale, terrified figure. My Lily. The chaos had clearly traumatized her. "Lily," I said, my voice soft, as I slowly approached and knelt before her. "It's okay, baby. It's Mama." She looked up. Her big eyes filled with tears. She was still a stranger, but the abject fear was gone, replaced by confusion. She recognized me as the woman who had cried, The deputies served the court order to Karen and Jessica. Karen lunged at me, screaming, "You witch! You destroyed my son and now you're stealing my granddaughter!" The deputies restrained her. Jessica just sobbed. "You can't do this! Lily is our daughter. This is a legally binding court order," Miss Pierce stated calmly. "Interference is a crime. Mr. Cole is incarcerated on felony charges. This is not a suitable environment for a child. Please, cooperate." I ignored them. All my focus was on Lily. I held out my hand, my smile as warm and gentle as I could make it. "Lily, Mama's here to take you home. A real home. Let's go, okay?" Lily looked at her hysterical grandmother, her weeping stepmother, and then at me. Her little world had been turned upside down. Her lower lip trembled, and fat, silent tears rolled down her cheeks. After a long moment, she slowly, tentatively, placed her tiny hand in mine. The feel of her small, warm hand in my own sent a jolt through me. Tears streamed down my face. 3 years. I was finally holding my daughter's hand again. I didn't rush her. I just held her hand and slowly stood up, nodding to Miss Pierce and the deputies. "Let's go, Lily," I whispered. She didn't speak, just clutched my hand with one of hers and her old rabbit with the other, and followed me out the door. Behind us, the sounds of Karen's curses and Jessica's sobs faded. As we walked out of that house, a monument to my pain and betrayal, and into the cool autumn sunlight, I squeezed her hand. "Don't be afraid, Lily. Mama's taking you home." In the car, Lily sat close to me, silent, staring out the window. I gently wrapped my arm around her. She stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. "From now on," I whispered into her hair, breathing in her sweet, childish scent, "Mama will never, ever leave you again. We're going to have a new home, a new life. I will always be here to protect you and to love you." She was still silent, but I felt her little body lean into me. Just a fraction. I looked out the window, toward the Vance estate. Kevin, your show is over. But for me and Lily, our new life is just beginning. The war was not over, but I had already won back the most precious part of my world. The rest would follow. The first few weeks with Lily at the Vance mansion were like tending to a frightened fawn. She was silent, wary, and easily startled. She barely spoke, always clutching that old stuffed rabbit, hiding in corners. At night, she had nightmares, waking up in silent tears, clinging to my shirt. Arthur instructed the entire staff to be as quiet and gentle as possible. Dr. Allen, the child psychologist, visited regularly, using stories and games to slowly coax Lily out of her shell. I was patient. I simply existed beside her. When she looked at picture books, I sat next to her with a book of my own. When she built with blocks, I watched quietly. When she stared blankly at her food, I fed her, spoonful by spoonful. At night, when she woke from her terrors, I held her and hummed the lullabies she used to love. I never forced her to call me Mama. I just gently repeated it. "I'm Mama. Lily's Mama. Mama made a mistake a long time ago and had to go away. But Mama is back now, and I will never leave you again." Slowly, she began to thaw. She started allowing me to brush her hair. She would take my hand on our walks in the garden. She started watching me. Her eyes filled more with curiosity than fear. The breakthrough came one sunny afternoon in the greenhouse. She was staring at a vibrant purple orchid. "Lily, do you like that flower?" I asked softly. She hesitated, then gave the tiniest nod. "Should Mama move it to our room so you can see it every day?" I suggested. She nodded again, a little more firmly this time. My heart soared. I had the gardener carefully move the orchid to her windowsill. From then on, every morning and every night, she would go and look at it, sometimes gently touching a petal. She began to smile at me, small, fleeting smiles, but they were enough to bring tears to my eyes. She started to speak in short phrases. "Mama, water. Mama, look." A bird. Flower pretty. Dr. Allen said her recovery would be a long road, but with unconditional love and a stable environment, she would heal. While I focused on rebuilding Lily's world, the final reckoning for Kevin was playing out. His bail was denied. Coal construction was officially bankrupt. The Lakeside Estates home was auctioned off to pay his debts. Karen, Jessica, and Brenda were forced to move into a rundown apartment, their lives of luxury a distant memory. Jessica gave birth to a baby boy, but the joy was overshadowed by poverty and bitterness. Karen tried to pull strings to help Kevin, but all their former friends had abandoned them. The day of the trial arrived. The charges were consolidated, vacating the divorce, the custody hearing, and the criminal trial all at once. I sat at the plaintiff's table with Miss Pierce. Across the courtroom, Kevin, in a prison jumpsuit, looked like a hollowed-out version of his former self. His family sat in the gallery, their faces etched with resentment. The trial was a formality. Miss Pierce presented an overwhelming mountain of evidence: the accountant's confession, the audio recordings, the financial records. When it was time to determine Lily's custody, a live video feed was set up with a court-appointed child advocate in a separate room. On the screen, my little Lily appeared, clutching her rabbit. The advocate asked her, gently, "Lily, who would you like to live with?" She looked down, her voice small but clear. I want to be with my mama." She didn't say Miss Thompson. She said, "Mama." That single word was my ultimate victory. It was the sound that broke Kevin completely. He slumped in his chair, defeated. The judge's verdict was swift and decisive. 1. The 2024 divorce decree was declared null and void. 2. Kevin Cole was found guilty of perjury, conspiracy to defraud, and obstruction of justice. He was sentenced to 7 years in state prison. 3. Full legal and physical custody of Lily Cole was granted to her mother, Eva Thompson. 4. All recoverable assets, totaling over $1 million after the sale of the house and liquidation of company assets, were to be transferred to me, along with an additional $50,000 in punitive damages. The gavel fell. 7 years. Kevin's life was in ruins. His mother fainted. Jessica stared into space, her face blank with shock. As the bailiffs led him away, Kevin looked at me one last time. His eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and disbelief. He still couldn't understand how the woman he had so easily discarded had become the agent of his destruction. I met his gaze, not with triumph, but with a quiet, sad sense of closure. Outside the courthouse, the sun was bright. "Congratulations, Miss Thompson," Miss Pierce said, shaking my hand. "Thank you, Miss Pierce." "For everything," I said sincerely. Alex was waiting. "Miss Thompson, Mr. Vance is in the car." In the car, Arthur looked at me, his eyes warm. "You did well, child. It's over," I said, looking out the window. "Thank you, Uncle Arthur. I couldn't have done it without you." "You had the strength in you all along," he said. "What are your plans now?" "The settlement is enough for you and Lily to live comfortably for the rest of your lives." I thought for a moment. The money was a lifeline, but it was also a symbol of my past. "Uncle Arthur, I want to use a portion of it to start a small legal aid foundation to help women who have been wronged, like I was. With the rest, I'll make sure Lily has the best possible education and future." "As for me," I said, my voice filled with a newfound determination, "I want to go back to school. I want to learn a skill, get a job, and support my daughter on my own. I need to build a future for us with my own 2 hands." Arthur's eyes shone with pride, spoken like Eleanor's daughter. "Whatever you need, just ask. Vance Consolidated has several charitable arms. Perhaps we can partner. And whatever you wish to study, pursue it." "Thank you," I said, my heart full. He had given me more than just justice. He had given me a second chance at life. When we arrived back at the mansion, Lily was in the garden with her nanny, watching the koi in the pond. When she saw me, she let go of the nanny's hand and ran toward me, her little legs pumping. "Mama!" she cried, throwing her arms around my legs. I knelt and hugged her tight, my tears flowing freely again. But this time, they were tears of joy, of hope. "Mama's back, Lily," I whispered into her ear. "We won." She didn't fully understand, but she felt my happiness. She reached up with her small hand and clumsily wiped a tear from my cheek. "Mama, don't cry," she said, her voice a sweet melody. "Look at the fish. They're pretty." "You're right, baby," I said, lifting her into my arms. "Mama won't cry anymore. Let's go look at the fish." I carried her toward the sun-dappled pond. Behind us, the mansion stood as a silent, steady guardian. Ahead of us was a future that was unknown, but for the first time in a very long time, it was ours. The shadow of Kevin Cole was finally gone. Justice had been served, and I, Eva Thompson, after walking through hell, had not only reclaimed my daughter, but I had reclaimed myself. The future might hold new storms, but I was no longer afraid. I had my daughter to protect, a family in Arthur Vance, and the strength to start anew. My new life began today.